One meets Stetch, the most talented dungeon explorer around, hired by a prince of the kingdom. Their mission is simple: retrieve a legendary artifact hidden deep inside this dungeon. But the ruins are packed with deadly traps, and Stetch knows how to spot them. Years of dangerous underground expeditions made him the best. He reads the room, safely guiding the oblivious soldiers past hidden triggers built right into the ceiling. He even hears the faint click of tripwires hiding within the walls. Stetch disarms them all. It is a piece of cake. Finally, they reach the heart of the ruins, but there is a catch. To get past this point, they have to take down a massive boss. Stetch chucks a stone to draw the Guardian's focus. Now, it is the soldiers' turn. He was only hired to guide them, but the men immediately panic. The beast unleashes a deadly stream of fire, but magical shields absorb the heat. Baltok orders his vanguard to raise a protective barrier against the flames. Against all odds, they manage to hold the defensive line. The commander begs Stetch to do something, so he loads his crossbow. He shoots, landing a direct hit right inside the monster's maw. One wrong move and he is almost flat as a pancake. Swiftly dodging, he ends up cornered by the raging beast with nowhere left to run. Just as death closes in, the soldiers raise their shields to buy him time. While the beast is distracted, Baltok strikes hard. He strikes the beast's face. The giant falls, and it is time to finish this. The knight leaps high, driving his blade home to secure the kill. Against all odds, they successfully take down the guardian of the ancient dungeon. Not bad at all. Even Stetch is quietly impressed. Pleased with the job, they head to the treasure room. Get ready for this. But gold and jewels mean nothing to them. They want the true prize. Nestled in the darkness lies the relic, mesmerizing everyone with its glow. Out of nowhere, the knight asks Stetch if he wants to touch it first. Normally, Stetch knows better. The prize belongs strictly to the contractor. But the commander keeps offering, insisting he take a closer look. The prince wants the hired explorer to have the honor of holding it first. Blinded by excitement, Stetch completely drops his guard. He steps forward and touches the dark ring, completely missing the look on the prince's face. Instantly, a violent surge of energy erupts, cracking the very floor beneath them. Raw power melts him like a candle. It is a lethal dose. He collapses, the scent of charred flesh filling the air. The prince knew the relic was cursed and needed a disposable sacrifice to drain it. Stetch was betrayed, and honestly, who did not see that coming? Baltok steps on his limp hand, confirming the curse has dissipated. But then things spiral completely out of control. The ring begins to shriek, forcefully fusing itself directly into Stetch's flesh. His mortal wounds begin to heal. Baltok swings his sword but misses. Arrows bounce harmlessly away. The prince can only watch in absolute horror. His perfect plan is ruined. The relic has chosen Stetch as its host. As the cave begins to collapse, they realize they must run. Inside this deadly dungeon, everyone is about to die unless they make a run for it. But leaving empty-handed means the entire expedition was for nothing. Baltok, the commander, knows this. He decides to burn their emergency escape scroll to save the young prince. Rushing over, he triggers the magic. Right then, the cavern floor gives way and Stetch plummets. Somehow he survives, coughing up freezing water as he drags himself ashore. He gasps for air and finally opens his eyes. He was holding his breath this entire time. Talk about a miracle. Nobody has ever cheated death quite like Stetch did just now. He literally stared straight into the dark abyss of the afterlife and dragged himself back. Meanwhile, the knight and the commander escape the collapsing ruins. They teleport to safety using the scroll, but they are the only survivors. Every single mercenary they hired was instantly crushed and buried under the collapsing stones. To make matters worse, that supposedly honorable Knight Gerald is actually the youngest prince of the kingdom. He put this whole dangerous team together just to hunt down a legendary artifact. He desperately needed it to boost his standing in the royal court. With the fight for the crown coming up fast, This failure is a total disaster. His reputation is ruined, but Baltok has an idea. He tells Prince Gerald that their target was far from a normal relic. Most scholars only recognize two distinct kinds of items, the standard independent ones and parasitic types. Parasites latch onto a host, merging with them and sharing their magical energy. If that organic host dies, the parasitic relic is instantly destroyed right along with them. But there is actually a legendary third type, the symbiotic class. These rare items can willingly choose to revive their fallen master. This means Stetch might actually still be alive, so they must put up search posters. But they must keep the bounty relatively low to avoid attracting too much suspicion. Back in the dark abyss, Stetch slowly opens his eyes. He is trying to figure out how he survived when suddenly, pain shoots through him. A massive electric shock confirms he is fused with the legendary relic. Not only did it save his life, but the thing is actually talking to him. The strange demonic ring speaks directly into his mind, introducing itself as the great memento mortem. It explains that Stetch is alive because of its passive soul repair ability. It stitched his fractured soul back together, but his physical shell is still completely wrecked. Now the great memento mortem is totally out of magic. Stetch tries to escape. As he slowly drags himself through the dark cavern, he questions his new magical partner. Standard relics usually only grant their user a single, simple ability. Memento boasts that at full power, it can grant up to 40 separate abilities. Stetch is stunned because even the greatest human experts only master 10 skills. The potential is jaw-dropping, so Stetch immediately asks which power he can use right now. The answer is absolutely zero, meaning he has to rely entirely on his own raw muscle. He must escape this deep pit using only raw muscle power. To make things even worse, the relic warns that he has exactly 12 hours left to live. If they do not find a magic source soon, they are both going to die. Without mana, the passive spell keeping him alive deactivates. Stetch realizes he is not truly cured, just kept on artificial life support. He is permanently bound to this strange relic just to stay breathing as hours pass by. Fueled by sheer survival, he pushes his broken body forward, searching for any exit. He pushes past his limits and finally spots the cave exit. Outside, Memento explains that despite his long slumber, waking him up does not make Stetch his master, he only lends power. See, his primary ability is called Curse Eating, allowing him to absorb magical energy. He can harvest raw mana from defeated beasts and drain other powerful relics. Trusting his gut, Stetch spots deep footprints in the dirt. Then the scent hits him, a giant wolf, the perfect source to replenish his mana. But he is completely unarmed and weak. Memento urges him to activate a skill. The air shot, it uses whatever scraps of mana he has left without killing him. His magic ring instructs him to aim straight at the massive predator. Stetch takes aim, fires, and an absolutely deafening blast tears through the quiet forest. The explosion is so violent that it literally vaporizes half of the giant beast. Stetch is stunned. Was that really just a basic low-cost spell? Memento scoffs with pride, reminding him that he is no ordinary trinket. He warns Stetch to stop hesitating like a total coward during a fight. Nodding, Stetch decides it is time to try his second ability. Focusing on the dead wolf, he triggers the curse-eating skill. Remember, Stetch was brutally stabbed in the back by a royal prince. That cowardly noble knows his brothers in Venetian will mock him for failing. The eldest already has the throne secured, making his own chances almost zero now. His Royal Highness will be labeled a fool who couldn't even conquer a single dungeon. A fool whose useless greed caused the deaths of hundreds of loyal soldiers. As Stetch absorbs the energy, Memento complains it is barely a snack. Still, draining the beast's power is a decent start for his recovery. The corrupt royals thought they had permanently put him in the ground. But now he is back, forced to hunt endless mana for this greedy ring. Some call it a curse, but to Stetch, it is an opportunity. An opportunity to get bloody revenge on those elite royals. He heads into town. He needs his old gear and some info, but hunters are already tracking him. Now a declared outlaw, he spots heavily armed guards blocking the city entrance. Thinking quickly, he gathers some wild sleeping herbs to set a silent trap. He burns them, putting the sentries to sleep, before quietly slipping past the gates. Inside, Stetch learns that his betrayers have branded him an active criminal. They put a heavy bounty on his head, making his blood boil with rage. He grabs his hidden gear, unsure how far the news has spread. Staying in any local village is out of the question for now. His safest bet is leaving the kingdom entirely, but that just is not his style. Running away like a whipped dog is absolutely out of the question. Memento asks if he actually wants to make those bastards pay. Stetch smiles, only a complete coward would let this slide. The ring chuckles, things are finally starting to get interesting. Since his new partner has such a dark, vindictive drive, he will help. The artifact explains that his powers grow with every bit of mana consumed. If he can swallow a truly massive source, his strength will skyrocket. Stetch now has a clear path forward to gain absolute power. He will destroy Prince Gerald and his corrupt family. He enters a local tavern. A soldier asks Dalton if there is any place around selling decent quality leather. Cheap leather, Dalton laughs and says the black market is his only choice. As they talk, Dalton suddenly spots a very familiar face in the crowd. He is completely shocked to learn that Stetch is actually a wanted man. Meanwhile, our hero spies on the gates, noting that huge cities always have hidden back doors. Memento asks why he even wants to enter, since the dungeon is his top priority. It assumed Stetch would head straight for the monster-infested dungeon instead. But the explorer calls the ring an idiot, explaining that escape scrolls are absolutely vital. If he goes into a dangerous dungeon completely unequipped and unprepared, he will just get slaughtered. It is the exact same type of emergency scroll that Gerald and his lackey used. So he heads over to the famous black market, a highly secretive place. Getting inside requires a secret knock and a special password. But Stetch completely forgot the code, typical rookie mistake. Luckily, the owner is his old friend Dalton, who is thrilled to see him. The two have a ton of catching up to do, so Dalton offers him a drink. Stetch declines the alcohol, instead asking to use a table where he dumps his monster loot. He begins offloading the valuable wolf claws, pelts, and other things he salvaged. Stetch asks how much an escape scroll is, and Dalton quotes him around 600 crowns. And right here our guy tries to borrow the cash, but Dalton flat out rejects him. He won't lend him money, but offers to buy him a meal while asking what he stole. Stetch reveals the tragic betrayal he suffered in the kingdom's most deadly dungeon. He details how the greedy prince left him to rot, and Dalton listens in shock. Dalton admits he does not have scrolls that cheap, but he knows a black market fence. This dealer can offer a great price for an outlaw, just ask for a guy named Clyde. Mentioning Dalton's recommendation, Stetch cautiously approaches the sleeping old man. He wakes him up as politely as possible, immediately hit by a truly horrible stench. The drunk vendor's illegal goods are laid out on the table right in front of him. Unfortunately, business is completely dead, but wait, look who is finally buying. This absolutely delights the drunk dwarf, who quickly realizes he finally has a paying customer. Stetch explains that he needs a reliable weapon suitable for a tight cave dungeon. The old man offers a single-shot pistol, which is useless against large hordes of beasts. He browses through other weapons, but nothing looks decent until the dwarf suggests a war hammer. Seeing Stetch's solid build, the vendor pushes the heavy mallet, but Memento interrupts. The artifact reminds him that most dungeon halls are narrow, making a massive hammer incredibly foolish. Startled, Stetch tells Memento never to pop out without his direct permission. Memento points out that only Stetch can actually see, hear, or sense its presence. With the Relic's guidance, Stetch chooses a sword and enters the dark dungeon. He is quickly surrounded by vicious beasts, taking some down with pure muscle power. He does not even need the ring's help, but soon senses a massive wave of monsters approaching. He aims Memento toward the monster-infested tunnel, unleashing a devastating air bomb spell. The blast obliterates the creatures, allowing him to feed on their souls with his cursed devourer. As he explores deeper, he spots valuable ore deposits and pulls out his pickaxe. He begins mining the valuable azure stones, but accidentally triggers a dangerous hidden trap. He plans to salvage its valuable parts, but is suddenly interrupted by a distant, echoing scream. Pointing his skull ring toward the noise, Stetch commands Memento to get ready. He lights up the area and freezes, shocked to see a massive mineral lizard. Dungeon beasts never play nice. It spits burning acid, striking his arm. Memento barks at him to stay calm, instantly activating his recovery skill. Flesh and bone knit back together. Stetch recognizes the species and starts explaining. They dissolve minerals with acidic breath to feed and harden their outer hides. That means standard physical attacks are totally useless. Still, he prepares an air bomb. But Memento suddenly stops him, shouting that he must not release that spell here. They are too deep underground. A blast that size could bring the ceiling crashing down. Instead, Memento points out it is the perfect time to test that new sword. Stetch hesitates, but the talking artifact quickly scolds him for doubting the plan. No point saving the weapon forever, especially when a mid-sized target makes the perfect test subject. Stetch finally draws the strange weapon and charges straight at the lizard. Dodging a wild swipe, he leaps high into the air, landing right above its head. He drives the blade into the crystals. Memento barks to pull the trigger. Stetch squeezes it. A massive blast shatters the lizard. Now, time for the Curse Eater. The skill devours the beast's residual mana, but Stetch sighs at his remaining ammo. Even if the gun sword was a gift, using these incredibly rare cartridges feels like a massive waste. He only has 4 left. Sure, Clyde crafted them to last, but what if they break? But wait, his worrying is cut short as Memento senses trouble ahead. Stetch tenses up, staring at the skull artifact as the atmosphere grows heavy. Memento warns him not to drop his guard. Right on cue, another screech echoes nearby. Another mineral lizard. Stetch groans, hating that he has to waste precious ammo. He rushes forward anyway, narrowly dodging as a massive claw swipes at him. Barely evading the strike, he spots a sudden opening and immediately goes for the counterattack. But the beast blocks it easily, showing far more combat experience than the last one. Its whipping tail keeps him back. Still, he has faced far worse before. He presses his advantage, charging ahead to slice straight through the creature. He swings hard, but this beast's hide is far denser, taking absolutely 0 damage. The lizard retaliates with a heavy blow, slamming Stetch hard onto the cold ground. Memento scolds him again, warning that something is deeply wrong with this specific beast. Stetch tries to stay positive, shouting back that every living creature has a weakness. Before he can finish, the lizard lunges, grabbing his head with terrifying strength. The beast slams his skull violently against the wall, leaving him dazed and bleeding. Memento snaps at him again, furious that he let himself get distracted mid-fight. But getting caught was all part of his plan from the very start. He packs explosive powder into his left hand and channels firefly energy in his right. Combining them creates a blinding flash grenade, giving him an opening to target its mouth. But just as he goes for the strike, a frantic system warning flashes on screen. 95% of its cells are critically unstable. Before he can react, the beast explodes. Seconds later, Memento begins regenerating his shattered body while scolding him. He notes the lizard was magically modified, which means somebody else is here. Someone is experimenting on these beasts, though how they did it is still a complete mystery. Stetch asks if any battle-ready monster might blow up, but gets no solid answer. Memento just shrugs, giving a vague maybe before teasingly asking if he is scared. Stetch scoffs, declaring he is absolutely not afraid as he continues deep into the dungeon. He activates his pathfinding skill, but absolutely nothing pops up on his radar. He even tries animal instinct until he finds a skeleton, claiming they usually do not react. They only wake up if you get too close, but since this one has been here for ages, it is totally petrified. Memento quickly warns him that the bones will actually detonate on contact, meaning they should probably just walk on by. But as Stetch walks past, the dead body suddenly rises, and Memento screams to run. Everything in its path blows up. Crash, Stetch tumbles into a fresh crater. He screams, what is he supposed to do if they detonate without even being touched? The ring tells him to shut his mouth, but then Stetch spots some glowing minerals. Pure greed takes over. This haul could easily set him up for the rest of his life. The moment he reaches out, the rocks spark. Suddenly, Memento realizes what is going on. This explains the weird feeling. A strange, heavy mana is filling the entire place. It is a bizarre energy that Stetch could not even sense, and it is getting thicker. The deeper they go, the heavier the pressure feels, and things are only getting worse. Every monster they spot is incredibly unstable. Stetch finally starts to understand. He asks if this heavy energy is what made the creatures so explosive. Memento confirms it, but it is not just the local wildlife that is behaving weirdly. Every single object in here is reacting to this raw mana. Wild. This thick energy even blocks escape scrolls, leaving Stetch completely trapped. He must slay the source of this mana to escape, after walking for minutes. Eventually, he reaches the massive chamber of the Guardian. This has to be the source. He throws the door open, and honestly, this boss looks incredibly bizarre. Even his high explorer intelligence cannot make sense of this strange creature. Memento speaks up. It is a genie, and an artifact is glowing right at its core. Apparently, spirits in this world are born when pure mana clashes with negative energy. Lacking any real consciousness, they exist solely to lay waste to everything around them. They are more like walking natural disasters than actual living beings, but why is there an artifact? Memento explains the grim truth. The dungeon guardian itself is the real problem here. It has completely fused with the artifact, pumping out unstable energy through the caverns. Everything is a ticking bomb now. Stetch smiles anyway. Defeat the boss. Simple. Stetch charges forward as the genie attacks. Multiple glowing blue stones fly at him. He deflects them, but one explodes too close. Memento yells a warning. This zone has the highest concentration of mana in the entire dungeon. The massive interference makes the creature even more dangerous. If they keep this up, the sword of Stetch and his body will both detonate. Catching his breath, the boy stares down the genie, which is charging up its core. Memento screams for him to run as a massive beam of energy erupts. Fortunately, Stetch manages to dive out of the way. He spots an opening. Even though the genie is made of solid stone, its joints look incredibly weak. He strikes hard at one of the joints, but the boulder suddenly freezes midair. It whips right back, hitting his jaw. How can he even damage this thing? Memento tells him to target the artifact inside, which is currently fused with the core. If he can just land his curse, eater ability, on that exact spot, it will drain the beast of all power, but the genie is already charging up. Stetch readies an air bullet of his own. The two attacks collide head-on. The genie's energy flares stronger, forcing Stetch to dodge. Magic splits into several deadlier paths. Our hero barely slips past the fragments. He narrowly dodges a massive, crushing fist, finally realizing that ranged attacks are just not cutting it. Stetch charges the monster, driving his sword directly into its body. He pulls the trigger for a quick explosion, but it barely does anything before the beast strikes. Stetch takes a brutal hit. He demands to know why his bullet failed. The ring explains that powerful mana interference is blocking the true force of his attack. Suddenly, more flying boulders interrupt them. Stetch blocks with his sword. He sighs heavily. At this rate, fighting this thing is like throwing eggs at a stone wall. Just then, the genie aims a savage fist straight at his left side. But Stetch refuses to run, knowing he can't get his ultimate revenge if he fails here. Slipping past the blow, he realizes he must keep targeting the core. Slowly wearing down its defense is his only hope of winning. That will give him a chance to use Clyde's special weapon to inflict real damage. The giant prepares another strike. Stetch blocks, but his resources are running dry. Talk about high stakes, only one cylinder left to make his strike count. He spots the monster spinning. Memento screams a warning, but it's too late. A massive flying stone smashes into Stetch. His loyal artifact instantly begins healing his broken body. Surprisingly, his mana is mutating. Stetch grunts, asking how much time the process needs. The artifact replies that it would normally take a minute in good condition. For Stetch, 60 seconds of survival is more than enough time to turn this around. He launches into a wild, suicidal charge directly at the beast. Firing a desperate air bullet directly at the core, he lands his first real hit. But the genie heavily shields its weak point, making it tough to damage. Stetch drives his blade straight into the core, triggering a massive explosion. Still, the beast stands, summoning sharp stone stakes to impale the boy. Memento warns him to move quickly or face certain death, but Stetch stubbornly refuses. Suddenly, he remembers the azure ore he gathered and prepares to detonate it. The massive blast leaves Stetch severely injured and barely standing. But there is a bright side to this mess. The monster's core is finally completely shattered. He unleashes Curse Eater on the shattered core and flees the dungeon. Safely outside the dungeon, his broken body recovers rapidly as the mysterious mutation successfully completes. Checking his status screen, Stetch notices his animal instinct upgraded to level 7. His Curse Eater reached level 4. With the battle over, he asks if Memento is awake. A system pop-up shows his artifact capacity limit increased to 150. With his air bullet evolved into air explosion, he unlocks 2 brand new combat abilities. One of them is Crosswind. Right now, he is also slowly unlocking Memento's hidden traits. These skills will unlock once he meets several challenging requirements. Opening the shop, he sees 8.35 stored mana waiting for him. Inside this shop, Stetch can purchase 2 powerful new options, Curse Aura and Cursed Devourer. The boy hesitates over which path to choose, but quickly makes his decision. By the very next morning, Stetch heads straight back to Clyde's workshop. He hands over his broken blade, asking the legendary craftsman to repair it for him. This sword saved his life countless times. Clyde is deeply moved and starts to cry. He promises to fix it, making the blade stronger and far more durable. Stetch leaves his dungeon spoils and a deposit of 3,000 crowns, asking for extra cylinders. Over at Dalton's bar, the bartender mentions that Stetch was running late today. But the young explorer just shrugs, asking Dalton if he is still upset about losing his main dungeon. He simply assumes that Dalton's backup mine must have worked out beautifully. Dalton grins, mentioning that the black market is absolutely overflowing with highly profitable deals. Stetch rejects it immediately, stating he only wants to sleep. Collapsing onto a bed, Stetch summons Memento, who immediately complains about feeling incredibly dizzy. He asks if the artifact was completely clueless until the active power finally awakened. Memento admits it, explaining that its functions reset the moment they first met. With his abilities mostly sealed, Stetch realized something quite crucial during the night. Air Bullet is just a basic starter spell, yet it completely transformed. It evolved into Air Explosion, a deadly response born entirely out of the explorer's absolute necessity. Stetch cuts through the explanation, summarizing that Memento basically knows nothing about the future. Now he just wants to pass out, but after a full night's rest, Dalton wakes him. Dalton shakes him awake, warning him that some really bad news just dropped. Finding Clyde at the bar looking absolutely thrashed makes Stetch halt in his tracks. Stetch demands to know what happened, but Dalton only knows he was found in an alley. Dousing the dwarf in a healing potion, Stetch immediately asks about the cost. The bartender avoids the question entirely, muttering that the item was pretty expensive. Clyde finally stirs, and when asked about the beating, he blames Derrick's gang. The news leaves the employees heavily discouraged, but Stetch has no idea who Derrick is. He looks around blankly, asking the tavern crew who this guy even is. Dalton explains that Derrick is a petty troublemaker they usually just tolerate. Since Dalton previously taught him a lesson for harassing travelers, he wants revenge on Clyde. Clyde explains that they targeted him specifically to shake down Stetch for information. Forget a simple robbery, that petty thug Derrick wants way more than cash. He won't stop until he turns in Dalton's friend for the active bounty. Stetch is furious. Still, the bruised dwarf begs him to be extremely careful. Stetch snaps back, telling Clyde to just focus on fixing the broken sword. He asks if they need extra funding, then demands someone keep an eye on Clyde. Walking out, Memento teasingly asks if his companion is feeling a little nervous. Stetch tells the artifact to shut up. It's been way too long since he last beat someone. The floating companion asks him if he plans on slaughtering the entire gang. Stetch denies it, saying he doesn't kill everyone who annoys him, but they won't escape easily. Meanwhile, Derrick is busy complaining to the city guards, trying to report Stetch. But the guards instantly dismiss him, stating that Dalton actually matters to the city. They refuse to raid his tavern over a shady, baseless accusation from a lowlife. Furious and ignored, Derrick storms back to his gang with nothing. He tells them the lazy guards ordered him to come back tomorrow. A gang member shrugs, pointing out that the 400 crown reward is pretty small. They already have enough loot to live comfortably, but Derrick wants actual blood. He wants to see Dalton's expression when they drag his friend off to prison. His rant cuts short when they suddenly notice Stetch standing right behind them. Derrick smirks, saying he was just wondering how he could find him. Stetch looks at him, eyes cold. The gratitude is entirely mine, he says. Fighting humans is rare. Honestly, he is just thrilled to have easy warm-ups. A thug tries grabbing his coat. Bad move. A brutal fist lands instantly. Stetch presses forward. He drives a savage knee straight into the next skull. Derrick sneers. He calls Stetch a miserable 400 crowns before swinging hard. Easy slip, Stetch retaliates instantly with a heavy hook to the jaw. Why aren't you throwing me in jail yet? Stetch mocks the struggling leader. Derrick starts blacking out. Coldly, Stetch dumps a healing potion over him. It is not your time yet, Stetch whispers. You messed with the absolute worst guy. Mendo laughs. He loves this kid's crazy attitude almost as much as beer. Talk about a beatdown. Stetch keeps landing brutal punches, absolutely destroying Derrick. The next morning, Dalton brings news. Derrick's gang is limping around thoroughly broken. He looks at Stetch. What exactly did you do to them last night? Just some light exercises, Stetch shrugs. Suddenly, Clyde bursts in and interrupts. He proudly presents the explorer's sword, upgraded, restored, better than ever. The dwarf explains he shifted the weight forward and added deadly trap wires. The cutting power is insane. It destroys targets even without a gas cylinder. But there is a catch. Clyde could not find enough alchemists to help. He only secured 4 cylinders. Still, knowing Stetch would be leaving town very soon. He prepared a special reference letter. On it, a list of gas ingredients. Show this letter to any professional alchemist, and they can easily brew more gas. Dalton smiles. He promises to notify all other black market branches about Stetch. No more red tape. He will have instant access to their entire network. Stetch offers his thanks, but before he can leave, Clyde halts him. Name your weapon first, the dwarf insists. It is far too unique. Mendo suggests calling it the Penetrator. Stetch thinks it is perfect. Meanwhile, things get tense in the Venezia kingdom as Prince Gerald returns. He sits in his quiet quarters. Suddenly, a heavy knock rattles the door. Enter, Gerald commands. Instead of a servant, his brother Alfred steps inside. Alfred gets straight to the point. Was all that reckless trouble actually worth it? You abandoned the front lines and led your entire squad completely astray. You excavated an unauthorized dungeon. If father finds out, you are finished. When our father summons you, stay absolutely silent. I will handle the alibi." Inside the grand audience hall, Gerald respectfully kneels before his father. "It has been far too long," the king says, but Alfred immediately interrupts. He falsely claims Gerald rushed southwest because of an elven rebel uprising. He claims Gerald moved swiftly to squash the rebellion before it spread. General Enderl narrows her eyes. This is completely new information to her. As General of the West, she demands to know why Gerald intervened in her territory. Alfred smiles, calling forward his loyal servant Conrad to present the evidence. He explains Conrad's special prediction artifact revealed the entire threat to Gerald. Apparently, the elven rebels leaked their plans to conquer a high-tier dungeon. They wanted to steal a devastating artifact, making immediate action absolutely necessary. The king stares. "Tell me, Gerald, what happened inside that dungeon?" Gerald speaks up. "Aside from Vice General Bostock, everyone else perished. The squad was entirely wiped out, but he successfully destroyed the artifact." The king demands to know why they must destroy it, only to get a quick explanation. Since it is a parasite, destroying it is far safer than letting the enemy claim it. Alfred then chimes in, announcing that Gerald brought back the enemy general's severed head. It is an elf's head. The king accepts the prince's alibi and tells him to rest. Meanwhile, Memento notes that signs of civilization are steadily fading away. Stetch explains that this is because they are heading deep into elf territory. These southern elves despise humans, and their last village has been warned about intruders. The artifact points out they can use their skills completely unnoticed. This makes it an ideal spot to quietly farm some dungeons. But Stetch rejects the idea, warning him that the elven nation is extremely dangerous. Deep rumors surround their power. Soon, Stetch finds himself navigating a dense forest. The trees are so thick he can barely see, and his tracking skills are useless. No wonder they call this eerie place the Forest of Darkness. A powerful magical field seems to block all of his senses. Suddenly, he spots someone tied up on a cross and rushes to free them. Memento warns Stetch that they need to leave immediately before wild bubbles trap them. Scanning the area, Stetch notices scattered body parts from previous failed rescue attempts. Determined to survive, Stetch decides to unleash an air attack to clear a path. But the wind does absolutely nothing to damage these bizarre floating creatures. Time to switch tactics. He channels powerful electricity magic into his palms. Unleashing the voltage of 2 car batteries, he fries the monsters and breaks the curses. Once they are safe, Stetch wakes up the lucky traveler he just saved. The man expresses his deep gratitude and quickly explains what happened to his group. He blames the elves, since nobody else would brutally slaughter humans in this forest. Stetch asks why the traveler even entered this zone, knowing how dangerous elves are. The man explains that he belongs to a merchant caravan traveling to the capital. To meet a tight deadline, they were forced to take this risky forest shortcut. Unfortunately, their luck ran out when a group of hostile elves ambushed them. Stetch gently asks if the remains inside those bubbles belonged to his allies. With a heavy heart, the survivor confirms they died trying to rescue him. Moved by the tragedy, Stetch promises to guide him to safety near the exit. The merchant is stunned by this kindness, but Stetch's sharp instincts suddenly kick in. Something feels entirely wrong. This forest is far too quiet, yet incredibly tense. Those eerie animal cries grow far more terrifying as they push forward. Still, Stetch pushes through and guides the merchant, Patterson, toward the light ahead. He tells Patterson to follow the path straight back to the main road. It seems easy enough, but both Memento and Stetch sense an immediate threat. Stetch draws his blade and leaps forward, deflecting a deadly arrow aimed at Patterson. An elven warrior, a remarkably beautiful one at that, steps into view. The elf coldly orders Patterson to surrender, but Stetch steps in to block her. The elves raise their weapons, and their leader warns that she won't ask again. Her arrows will do the talking. Unfazed, Stetch calmly stands his ground. He tells her he is not bluffing. If she wants to fight, then bring it. Her angry subordinates glare with pure hatred, begging for the permission to kill him. But surprisingly, the beautiful elf holds them back, deciding to negotiate first. Doing anything reckless, this calm attitude completely catches Stetch off guard. The guards do not understand this move from their leader, Elena. She orders them to listen, then asks if Stetch knows why she wants this human. The explorer has no idea, but he is sure she will explain. The whole vibe is surprisingly calm, making Patterson warn Stetch not to trust these elves. Elena asks what Patterson told him. Hearing his lies, she finds the story pretty amusing. Before telling Stetch to follow, honestly, those gorgeous elven curves are hard to ignore. Stetch drags the prisoner along too. They eventually arrive at a clearing with an overturned cart, pointing in the exact opposite direction of the original story. To make matters worse, Elena pulls a severed arm right out of the river. It belonged to the ally of Patterson, still wearing a slaver bracelet. This leaves no doubt about their real plans in elf territory. Now Stetch sees right through the deception. Real, burning anger flashes across his face. Checking the arm, he finds the same hidden cuff. The liar screams, demanding that Stetch not side with monsters, begging his fellow human for help. But our grim avenger has a very different kind of response. He shuts Patterson up with a brutal, bone-shattering punch straight to the jaw. The hypocrite was proud of his slave trade, but hid it out of fear. For him, the human bond does not exist in this dark world. Trash is trash, regardless of the species. He turns and asks Elena what they should do, but she wants to hear his suggestion first. The answer is written in his clenched fists. He wants this trash to pay. Knowing this is the end, Patterson panics and bolts, desperately trying to run. In a split second, an arrow pierces his arm. Elena calmly aims again. Dropping him with a shot to the leg, Stetch watches with interest. Impressed by how effortlessly she snipes a target, moving at full speed. Dragged back, Patterson begs for his life, swearing he is done with slavery. He desperately begs the explorer for mercy, but Stetch completely tunes him out. His final, desperate screams go to Elena, but unfortunately for him, justice is absolute. Moments later, the elf calmly washes her blood-stained arrow. She admits she is pretty surprised he did not step in to save his own kind. Stetch simply shrugs, telling her she has him all wrong. He is not a hero. Hearing this, the gorgeous elf changes her tone. She explains that no human who invades their sacred forest can leave alive. An arrow flies in a sudden lethal shot, but Stetch does not flinch. His absolute confidence pays off as the projectile is cleanly deflected away. Elena leaps back, realizing that Stetch must be a powerful mage since he did not cast a spell, but Stetch simply activates recovery and wind magic. That is when Elena spots the enchanted ring on his hand. She senses 0 mana from his body, proving he is no wizard. She commands the elves spread out to attack until his ring runs dry. Level 5. Continuous shooting focuses all their deadly precision on a single target. But these attacks do absolutely nothing to him. Stetch asks why they even bothered explaining everything if they planned to kill him from the start. Elena coldly replies that she just wanted to clear. He won't kill without any reason, demanding to know why they want him dead. Meanwhile, Memento tells Stetch to stop wasting mana, so he uses his sword to defend himself. It is quite easy since those incoming arrows only target his head. Stetch, on the other hand, tells Memento he refuses to use any mana because his attacks would instantly kill both elves, even if his ring thinks he is weak for. Showing mercy to active killers, Stetch launches a light strike strictly to intimidate the elves. Spotting a quick opening, he strikes one of the elves straight in the teeth, and honestly, she might have lost every single one of them. Elena asks if that ring is an artifact, and Stetch shows it without any hesitation. The elf is completely stunned, harboring a deep hatred, and she attacks him even more fiercely. Filled with hatred, she spits out how something so disgusting could ever exist. This completely blindsides Stetch. He really does not understand her exact meaning, but knows it is bad news. Taking advantage of the moment, the beautiful elf slips right into Stetch's blind spot during his brief distraction. The relentless woman strikes his chest. Talk about a pretty bad spot, facing those two hostile elves. With a chest wound, despite the pain, he manages to keep control and activates his healing skills. Alina watches closely, and though she does not even know it is magic, she notices his wound closing, instantly shooting several more holes into Stetch now. He sacrifices his arm to block, knowing despite the pain, he can heal up later. Stetch now prepares to retaliate against the hostile elf. However, Alina easily predicts his exact movements, shooting his ring to completely shut down his potential attack. He never imagined anyone could foresee his strike and stop it with a single arrow. Memento explains that right before he strikes, a massive amount of mana pools right in front of him. She can easily sense this mana and predict such a devastating blow. In reality, this requires absolute superhuman reflexes to pull off, so there is no way Alina is just an ordinary elf. Stetch agrees, charging with his sword. He forces her to retreat, but giving her any time to breathe, he presses forward, yet Alina's arrows constantly keep him back. Activating Crosswind, he deflects those arrows. Her plan was to blow his head off from a blind spot while staying wary of his ring, but she is completely shocked when he suddenly punches her instead of using magic. Stetch tells her that sensing too many things is a major flaw. While airborne, she cannot move, and he knocks her out with a headbutt. Hours later, Stetch notes he has not struggled like this since starting swordsmanship. Alina eventually wakes up, demanding to know what he hoped to achieve by invading their sacred forest, but Stetch tells her his business has absolutely nothing to do with the elves. He never wanted to fight, but she must pay for trying to kill him. Taking Alina's bag, he calmly mentions that he only came for the local dungeons. She is lucky to survive. He then pulls out her map, keeping it and promising to return it if they ever meet again. Alina desperately tries to stop him now, but Stetch completely ignores her. Walking away, he soon discovers that the hidden entrance to the dungeon is actually buried beneath a tree. Memento questions how such a clueless explorer has such bad senses. He explains that trees rarely grow near these dungeons because of the dense mana concentrations. Stepping right inside, the boy is now fully excited to explore. He tries to activate his pathfinding ability, but since he lacks experience with this type of dungeon, Stetch relies on pure animal instinct. He echolocates, mapping out the dark tunnels using vibrations as Memento starts chatting. The artifact asks when he became an adventurer, and the boy replies he started at 12. If he wants to keep this lifestyle, he has to survive situations exactly like this. Heading deeper into the dungeon, the young explorer starts getting pretty suspicious. Usually monsters would have jumped them by now, but they have not seen a thing. If there were any monsters lurking close, he would hear their heartbeats. Suddenly they come face to face with a massive, terrifying tree. Talk about bad vibes. Memento sarcastically remarks that he probably spoke too soon for things to happen. Stetch asks if this giant tree is a monster, but Memento says it is just a rigid root. The artifact warns him not to touch any of the other plants. Stetch realizes why he did not hear any heartbeats. None of these things have hearts. Knowing there is still a long path ahead, the boy pushes deeper into the cavern. He slices and dodges through the hostile vines, constantly chasing him. They are pretty easy to handle, but the moment he opens his mouth, they trap him. Memento mocks his sloppy mistake as the roots begin sucking his blood. Feeling the sting, Stetch triggers Crosswind and decides to get serious. He unleashes a powerful fireball spell that completely incinerates all the hostile vines around him. Meanwhile, Memento reminds him to absorb absolutely everything in sight. After clearing the dungeon, system messages reveal the artifact's mana rose to 250. It gained 2 new skills, including a passive called Reflective Skin. Suddenly, Alina sneaks up behind him, and Stetch reflexively holds his sword to her throat. Alina says she is not here to fight. He is highly suspicious. He asks if she wants a rematch or if the map brought her back here. To his surprise, Alina drops to her knees, stating she does not care about the map. She only wants her precious pendant back. Soon, her elven companions catch up. When they spot the necklace in Stetch's hand, she swiftly knocks them out with quick chest punches. The stunning elf desperately begs, promising she will do absolutely anything to get it back. Stetch calls her incredibly naive, warning that an evil human would easily take advantage of her. But she remains completely unbothered, insisting he is not a bad person. She points out he saved Patterson, but let him die after learning he was a criminal. Intrigued, Stetch questions why this little pendant is so extremely important to her. He agrees to return the precious item, but only on one very specific condition. She must help him avoid other elves while he hunts for hidden dungeons. If they run into any, she has to make sure they leave him alone. He even suggests pretending to be her captive or slave to avoid any conflict. Agreeing to the terms, the elf writes a quick note to her unconscious companion. She explains she will be gone for a few days, so they do not worry. If the elders end up asking, they should just say she is patrolling a distant forest territory. As they set off, Alina recalls her childhood, growing up deep within the great forest. Her grandmother, who raised her there, used to tell her endless stories. She always warned her that humans are creatures driven by endless greed. They would stop at absolutely nothing to obtain whatever their dark hearts desired. Every human she ever met proved those words correct until she crossed paths with Stetch. He showed her something far different from greed, proving her grandmother wrong. Stetch notes how weird this feels. Naturally, Memento mocks him instantly. The sword laughs, acting completely normal right now would be way weirder. After all, they were just trying to kill each other, Stetch sighs. He starts to apologize for forcing her along. She cuts him off. She confesses she cannot tell if he is a villain or perhaps a hero. Why clear every single dungeon? It makes zero sense for a regular human. Treasure is great, but why would anyone venture deep into this wild forest? He sighs, it is too complicated. Explaining is pointless anyway, and the timeline quickly skips forward 4 days. Where is Stetch, bound in a deep pit by incredibly thick ropes? He cannot escape. The clever, awkward trap design makes moving almost impossible. Unreal, this place proves that dungeons come in every possible shape and size. Suddenly, a sound. Gross insect monsters crawl out and get blasted immediately. Stetch checks on Alina. Right on cue, a giant ant lunges at her. Quickly, the elf uses a massive leaf to dodge, slashing back fiercely. Another bug attacks. Stetch intercepts, jumping directly in front of the beast. "Stay behind me," the seasoned explorer commands as he prepares his next spell. He unleashes roaring fire magic. The extreme heat roasts the insects instantly. Elena shields her face. She wonders what kind of crazy human she is with. If he had not been holding back, he could have burned everything. How many spells does he have? Out loud, she demands some answers. He is not quite sure, but it is definitely more than 10. These ants are just the entry tier, only the very beginning. Their shells resist basic cuts, but they cannot handle intense fire. Wait, she notices Stetch, absorbing some strange energy from the dead bugs. Is this normal? Surely not all rare artifacts can do such a thing. Alina notes that absorbing raw mana is completely different from channeling it. To do this, the tool must tap into something far more primordial. It targets the soul. Stetch remains silent, deeply considering her heavy words. He defends himself, stating that Memento only drains mana from dead monsters. Since it does not harm living people, he sees nothing wrong with it. Alina remains highly skeptical. Still, she sighs and signals to move on. But her dark warning leaves our reborn Avenger with some serious doubts. Can Memento truly access his soul? Ultimately, it does not even matter. He is already dead, after all. Ahead, they reach the dungeon core. A massive split path blocks them. Why does this place have to be so messy? Alina explains that this baffling layout is why her tribe never conquered it. Stetch gets a wild idea. He drives his sword deep into the wall. His beast instincts flare. Instantly, he senses hundreds of crawling bugs nearby. It is a massive nest. Alina warns him that the maze goes on forever. No explorer has ever managed to survive and reach the deep end. Suddenly, she grabs his collar, but instead of attacking, she acts fast. She throws a magical cloak over them, turning them completely invisible. A giant worker ant crawls past. Fortunately, their cover holds up perfectly. Memento advises Stetch to quietly follow these bugs straight to their main nursery. Straight to the queen, Stetch whispers to his ring that it's a smart play, but when he breaks the news to Alina, she insists the elves already tried everything and failed. It won't work. Still, she shoots down every single one of Stetch's plans, but Memento keeps humming, communicating with his master in perfect, silent sync. The battle plan is simple: push straight into the darkest depths. Stetch hurls fireballs from under the cover of Alina's stealth cloak, turning incoming ants to ash, while the elf girl uses precise arrow shots to strip away their limbs. Hours of systematic slaughter follow. Through it all, Stetch's wild survival instinct suddenly flares up. He senses pure dread nearby. Just then, Alina spots forgotten objects. Scattered on the cold stone, cursed, personal relics belonging to dead elves. Poor souls who perished trying to conquer this place. Cursed gear like this can never go back to their families, but Memento whispers a dark suggestion. Stetch needs to take these cursed relics to feed the black aura of his ring. But will a proud elf like Alina actually let a human keep her people's heirlooms? It feels wrong to ask, but Stetch decides to push his luck anyway. The stunning elf frowns. Why take cursed trash that will only kill him? But seeing his resolve, she shrugs. If he thinks they can help, take them. Stetch snaps the heavy bracelets onto his wrists, declaring they are ready. A wicked smirk creeps onto his face, and honestly, his enemies are not ready for this. They march deeper, finally coming face to face with the absolute queen of this nest. Alina lets fly a volley of arrows, but the attack triggers a massive panic. Thousands of dormant eggs rupture, unleashing a sudden tide of angry monsters. Endlessly pouring from every dark crack, they push Stetch to his absolute limit. Totally surrounded, Stetch's only play is to execute the queen. He unleashes a torrent of flame, but worker ants throw their bodies in the way. They act as living shields. Cornered, the young explorer is out of options. Desperate times call for dark measures. He must unleash the bracelet's curse. Stetch unleashes a crushing blast of wind, caving in the main tunnels. No more reinforcements can get in. It is just them and the queen. He takes a deep breath and channels the forbidden power of the relics. Right now, it is hard to tell who the real monster is here. Cursed gear usually rots the body and drains your soul. Sane hunters stay far away, but that rule does not apply to the Memento Mortem, a sinister ring that devours pure malice. Stetch barks an order for Alina to stay back. Instantly, a wave of dark energy erupts from him, crippling the stats of every single beast in the chamber. The swarm drops to their knees, even the massive queen herself, but there is a catch. The pressure forces Stetch down too. Amazingly, only Alina stands tall, completely immune. Shocked, she watches him struggle to hold the crushing domain active. She must be the one to kill the pinned queen. Alina draws back her bow, releasing 2 lethal shots that pierce the boss. As she falls, Stetch drops the spell, and the surviving swarm goes wild with rage. Pulling Alina close, he unleashes a massive storm of lightning magic, vaporizing every remaining ant in the room. His elf companion can only watch in absolute awe. She admits he is insanely reckless, but no one else could ever clear this dungeon. It was a feat even the elves failed at. Next, Stetch absorbs the dungeon relic. This legendary Queen Heart relic boosts his artifact stats and pushes his mana limit way up. Stetch grabs the teleportation scroll to get them out of this place, and quickly activates it. 3 days later, Stetch is already hunting for the oldest dungeon around. The absolute most dangerous territory of the elves, known as the Red Tree, Alina warns him that going there is suicide, but Stetch insists he is much stronger now and everything will be fine. Still, Memento warns him to keep his power a secret. Alina chimes in, pointing out that the deadliest part of this dungeon is actually the elves themselves, since the Red Tree sits right past their village. Slipping by is impossible. They cannot hide anymore. To survive, Stetch has to follow orders from Alina exactly. Alina spots tracks on the ground, mistaking them for simple deer prints. But they are actually from striders. She explains that these elite striders are the finest scouts among the Black Forest elves, and they never leave traces behind. Usually they never expose themselves like this. She adds that while they might not beat Stetch in a fair one-on-one fight, but if they come prepared to kill, he will drop dead before even seeing where the arrows came from. Soon, Alina suddenly halts. Something is wrong, and she cannot hear a single forest animal. Stetch relies on his sharp instincts and confirms it. The surrounding woods are silent. The silence is heavy. Stetch triggers his hostility detection, and Alina freezes in fear. This is not just hostility. It is pure, suffocating, murderous intent. She screams out to warn Stetch, but she is too late. His body is instantly shattered. Knocking his consciousness out instantly, he drops like a stone to the cold ground. Alina stares in absolute horror at his broken body, spotting hidden elves nearby. These must be the Striders. Is Stetch about to become the first double-dead human? The silent hunters step out from the shadows, letting loose another warning arrow. When they finally step into the open, this elf girl honestly looks exactly like a green-haired Hinata clone. Either way, Alina gets furious and rushes to protect Stetch, shielding him, demanding to know why they are attacking. The Striders shoot back, asking why is she traveling with a filthy human. These scouts are Jesper and Ida, and they vow to kill any human trespasser. But they never expected Alina to stand against her own people. Shield his bleeding body and stop them from finishing the job, Alina tells them. They do not understand, explaining that Stetch is the only soul who can conquer the Red Tree dungeon. She begs them to let him through. They inspect his gear and discover items belonging to Alina mixed inside. Jesper assumes she is being blackmailed, telling her she can forget about ever becoming a Strider now. Ida refuses to hear any excuses, declaring they are taking her to the council instead. Our protagonist, who only came here to conquer the 3 legendary local dungeons, is now dragged away as a prisoner, heading straight to the grand elven capital. Along the way, Jesper tells Alina she should smile a bit now she is home. But Alina completely ignores his teasing, coldly telling him to keep his mouth shut. Meanwhile, Jesper is baffled by the captured human. The guy simply refuses to die even though he is bleeding out. Alina snaps back, warning him that once they realize how valuable Stetch is, he will regret ever treating him like garbage. Jesper flies into an absolute rage at the suggestion of respecting some mere human. Hinata quickly orders them both to shut up, since one of the elven elders is approaching. She wants a word. It is impossible to tell if this newly arrived elf is young or old. She greets them formally, Strider Jesper, Strider Hinata, and Relic Protector Alina. It is good to see you, the elder says. Alina stands there, completely tense. The elder demands to know why Jesper dragged a human into their sacred city. Jesper explains that this thief stole Alina's relic and even blackmailed her with it. He brought him for interrogation. The elder wonders aloud if the human is already dead. They are not entirely sure. Oddly, a massive wound on his arm has completely vanished. The elder orders him thrown into a dungeon cell. As for Alina, she must follow her. Alina is not happy about this, but defying an elder is out of the question. The elder reveals that the Red Tree Dungeon has spun completely out of control. It is actively consuming their ancient forests, and last week, another elf was dragged inside. The anomaly is expanding rapidly, luring more victims into its parasitic depths. This whole system is parasitic. Their village can only hold it back for so long. With disappointment heavy in her voice, the elder shifts her focus back to Elena. While their forest rots, the young protector went and lost their most precious relic. To make things worse, she became the thief's guide, a crime no elder will overlook. Punishment is guaranteed. Sometime later, the heavy darkness fades and Stetch opens his eyes. Our protagonist wakes up to a massive headache throbbing right behind his eyes. Talk about a rude awakening. He is in a massive stadium surrounded by screaming elves. Memento healed his body, but could not wake his sleeping mind. Memento quickly explains what happened while Stetch was out cold. He was knocked unconscious for 4 whole days while his body slowly put itself back together. The elves kept him locked away, and today is his trial, followed by immediate execution. The elder elf with an imposing presence demands silence, and the crowd immediately obeys. She commands the human to speak, accusing him of entering their forest to steal the relic. She asks if this is true. From the arena floor, Stetch spots Elena standing high above. Her expression alone proves she is miserable with the situation. Stetch simply replies that yes, it is true, which instantly triggers the crowd. The crowd screams in fury. Stetch finally realizes how important that relic actually is. It was not just important to Elena. The elder asks if he coerced her. She asks if he used the sacred object to force the girl to guide him. Stetch calmly admits to this as well. The commanding elder then demands to know his goal. Does he plan to kidnap elves and sell them into slavery? Stetch just tells the truth. He states clearly that his only goal is to completely destroy every dungeon here. This bold claim catches everyone completely off guard, except for Elena, who already knew. The elder scoffs, demanding to know how many soldiers he brought and where they are hiding. How does he plan to feed an entire human army inside restricted elven territory? How powerful is his military force? The dark adventurer simply replies that he has no one. He claims to clear whole dungeons entirely on his own, with zero outside help. Such an outrageous claim feels like a slap in the face to every elf present. Enraged, the elder summons Jester into the arena to beat the actual truth out of him. Strider Jesper mutters that the human should have just talked when he had the chance. Now it is too late. The executioner strikes so fast that Stetch cannot even defend himself. A heavy punch lands right in his stomach, knocking the wind out of him. It seems this is just the beginning, while they demand that the human explorer tell them the absolute truth. The elder decides it is time for his alleged accomplice, Elena, to speak up. Their first question is simple. Why did Elena not call for help during the robbery? Why did she let a mere human blackmail her? Truth is, she had her reasons. She refused to let her entire tribe suffer for her protector's failure. But keeping that to herself, she explains how his dungeon-clearing rampage actually ended up helping the elven race in the end. Even though she doesn't fully trust him, she knows he cleared 2 deadly dungeons alone. The elder snaps instantly, shouting that such a feat is absolutely impossible. Everyone knows clearing a dungeon takes an entire army and months of planning. As Stetch quietly takes a beating without striking back, the elder argues that Elena must have missed some vital details outside their forest sanctuary. He insists this human has a secret army, but she firmly denies it. She states there is no secret army. They did absolutely everything together. Another elder demands to know why she keeps lying for this human. The proud elf stands her ground, declaring to the council that it is all true. Suddenly, Renata interrupts and draws everyone's attention straight back to the arena. This human is anything but ordinary. The crowd is starting to sense it too. The crowd feels a bizarre, heavy pressure rising from him. Stetch shrugs off Jester's blows, confident the elf will collapse first. Alina warns the elders that their village is desperate, on the brink. And this mysterious human, he is the exact solution they have been searching for. She reveals his terrifying secret: he absorbs monster and dungeon energy. Nito wonders why Stetch has not used this ability to end things quickly. But Stetch knows a massive commotion right now would only cause trouble. Instead, he relies on his new partner to handle the council. The elder questions if absorbing mana violates natural laws, but she stands firm. Renata quickly cuts in to end the debate, suggesting they release the monster. If Elena is telling the truth, they will know soon enough. The mere mention of this beast makes the elders deeply anxious. Renata politely asks if Elena is willing to let him prove himself. He needs to prove his power against the strongest, most terrifying beast they own. Elena eagerly agrees, and Jester, hearing this madness, immediately forfeits the match. He begs Stetch to calm down, freeing his arms as peace. Suddenly, a massive, deafening roar shakes the entire Colosseum and Stetch's eardrums. Right in front of him stands a colossal, terrifying armored bear. How did they even domesticate and cage a beast like this? The elder thinks this is massive overkill, but Renata quickly objects. If Elena spoke the truth, even this bear might not survive him. The busty elder demands a demonstration. Stetch gets the message: fight time. But seriously, are they going to make him fight empty-handed? That is when he feels his magic ring melted under his skin. Memento hid itself so the elves could not confiscate it. Ready for action, Stetch summons fireballs to test the giant beast. The giant bear swats the fireball away with a single slap of its paw. Stetch knows this beast is impressive, but he already has a plan. He unleashes a devastating blast of pressurized air, yet the creature somehow stands its ground. Even the watching elves in the auditorium can barely stomach that intense shockwave. Yet the bear emerges completely unscathed, leaving Stetch in absolute disbelief. With a deafening roar, the monster lunges forward, but our hero slips right past. He dodges easily, shocking the beast until it gets dizzy. As it staggers, Renata asks Jester if he secretly gave this human any magical artifacts. Jester denies it, reminding her they stripped the outsider of everything he owned. Now Volibar smells like charred barbecue, shocking the elders who never expected this. But Alina is absolutely thrilled. Meanwhile, the smoking beast is still raring to go. Memento warns Stetch that his mana reserves are running dangerously low, which he already knows. But Stetch just realized something crucial: those lightning strikes are highly effective. The armored beast charges again, but Stetch uses a quick wind boost to slip away. Leaping onto Volibar's head, he fires a massive fireball directly into its face. As the beast screeches in agonizing pain, Stetch boldly grabs its tongue. He forces its jaws open with a wicked grin. Things are about to get really messy. Turns out this fake beast has zero resistance to a direct shock. Suddenly, Volibar's raw energy is absorbed directly into Stetch, shocking the crowd. Some call him a total monster, claiming this defies every natural law. But the High Elder demands silence. They have no choice but to respect his strength. Even the Elder who openly doubted Elena is forced to offer a humble apology. Elena immediately asks about their next move, though the answer is already pretty obvious. They must let this human clear the dungeon, since it threatens their entire existence. Finally, the elders ask for the human's name, and he calmly gives it. The chief elder acknowledges that he risked everything to prove his worth. But she still demands to know why he took Elena's precious artifact in the first place. Stetch explains he had no idea what it was, nor did he mean to steal. His entire goal is simply to challenge the mysterious Red Tree dungeon. With a grim look, the elder declares they won't stop him if he is that desperate. However, they will only provide basic supplies, offering absolutely no extra help. Stetch can clearly feel the hostility, but Elena immediately offers to join his quest. The elder quickly shuts that down, ignoring the young elf's frantic pleading. Elena argues that the Red Tree is far deadlier than any normal dungeon. Sending him in completely alone is basically a suicide mission, regardless of his power. But the Elder stands firm, insisting Elena must pay for losing the artifact. Nomento whispers that they just want to keep their precious princess safe. Honestly, who can blame them for wanting to shield her? Still, Elena looks completely devastated that she can't watch his back. Stetch gently asks if she forgot that his gear grows stronger with every cleared dungeon. He reassures her that he is not nearly as helpless as the Elders think. Dying is not on his agenda. Finally, the Elder orders his gear to be returned. She asks if he needs anything else, and Stetch requests some simple potions. Meanwhile, near the dungeon border, Elven Striders struggle to contain the spreading roots. Their captain raises his weapon, aiming directly at the encroaching threat. Roots shouting at his men to hold them off, at all costs, before he could. Even react, the vines ensnared him, wrapped tight just like in a weird anime. A sudden blast tore through the wood, saving the captain. Help had finally arrived. The group rejoiced, yet they never expected their savior to be a human. The captain demanded answers. Why was a human wandering so deep into their woods? Renata stepped forward with a fierce warning, keep your hands off of him. Otherwise, she promised to personally castrate them. The captain then questioned Jester about the situation. Why were elite rangers escorting an outsider? Jester admitted he had no clue, but the matriarch believed this human was their absolute last hope against the growing dungeon. Outside, Stetch torched the remaining vines. He waved goodbye, calling them cute little pointy ears. Meanwhile, back in the village, young Elena asked the Elder why she held her back. The old woman looked incredibly young, but she flatly refused to let her grandchild go anywhere near the red tree. She had already lost her own child to that cursed place. Elena was now her final living relative. Still, the young girl worried deeply. If their vanguard fell, it would mean total ruin for their people. The entire forest would collapse. It would transform into one massive, endless dungeon. Helping him was their best bet, but her grandmother remained completely stubborn. To her, Elena was too precious to risk, simple as that. Throwing another loved one into that meat grinder would not solve anything. She refused to risk her last family. Elena opened her mouth to argue. But the old Elder shut her down. The discussion was officially over. No matter how powerful the human was, they needed a backup plan. With a heavy heart, the old woman noted that Stetch was no hero like Cain. But he could still buy them time. Meanwhile, inside the Red Tree dungeon, rotting elven remains littered the damp ground. The atmosphere was incredibly tense. The heavy, suffocating air made it clear this zone was incredibly dangerous. Stetch nodded in agreement. He could practically taste the copper and decay. The stench was far worse than before. Moving deeper, he noticed strain, demonic vegetation, and asked his cursed artifact if it recognized the parasitic flora. Momento was genuinely shocked at how far the young hunter had already progressed. His pathfinding had failed him before. Drawing his blade, Stetch sliced at the aggressive thicket. He triggered an explosive capsule, causing a massive, groundbreaking blast. The floor collapsed. Stetch dropped down into a newly formed underground cavern. Below, he discovered a bizarre subterranean nursery full of weird, giant flowers. A revolting smell filled his nose. Stepping closer to one bud, he gasped. A dried-up elf was trapped inside. Momento could detect zero life within. Given the terrible odor, the sword assumed every single pod held a corpse. Suddenly, stealthy vines lunged from the shadows. They aimed right at his back. He easily slashed them away. The plants hated having their buffet disrupted. But he had no intention of letting them feast. He tore open the pods. Pulling out the surviving prisoners, he shook one, shouting at him to wake up. As the elf began screaming, Stetch slapped him. Hard, be quiet, he snapped. The terrified survivor whined, but Stetch told him to toughen up right now. Handing over a teleportation scroll, he ordered him to rescue the others and run. He had to go, but the elf grabbed his shirt, begging him to wait. They had to save the one person who kept them alive. He refused to leave without Cain Dronwar and speak of the devil. Cain woke up. Did those bastards really want another round? At his absolute limit, the front wall suddenly shattered into pieces. A human carrying an elf boy appeared, and the kid happily confirmed it was Cain. Stetch was disgusted by the sight, but rushed over to Cain immediately. He warned Cain that this might hurt a bit, telling him to bear with it. The other elf begged him to be gentler, but soon the boy was carrying Cain. He carefully carried Cain right out of the dark dungeon, once they made it out. Stetch asked if this was really Dronwar, and Memento confirmed his suspicions. He felt uneasy leaving such an important person with a weak little elf. Stetch asserted that he could feel the dungeon master waiting behind that wall. The monster was practically begging to fight him. With Cain safe, Stetch got to work. He did what he does best, absolutely obliterating everything in his path. Behind the wreckage, he found exactly what he expected, a massive, twisted monstrosity. A hideous plant creature. He had no idea such abominations existed. The tree whipped its branches toward him as he asked for details on the guardian. It turned out to be a twisted subspecies of the ancient world tree. It matched the massive tree growing right above the dungeon, overflowing with pure mana. The magical energy was so thick he could not tell what it once was. Absolutely grotesque, Stetch watched the plant coil its thick vines defensively. Realizing the plant was semi-sentient, he launched a sudden counterattack. He fired a massive fireball, but a shield of blood rose to block it. This thing was incredibly cunning, and none of his spells were doing anything. He figured lightning magic would be useless against a giant wooden target. It made sense. This guardian had ruled the dark forest for centuries. Sitting at the absolute top of the food chain, it would not fall easily. It had likely trapped and drained high-tier mages many times in the past. Stetch lunged forward, slashing at the massive trunk with his sword. Blocked, giant, sharp vines whipped forward, slashing deep into his flesh. Even with his passive defense skills active, he was tightly bound and captured. Stetch quickly downed a healing potion and hurled the empty bottle at its head. He spat out a warning, telling the overgrown weed not to get too cocky. And get this, the damn tree actually started laughing, completely mocking him. It completely ignored its primary duty to just protect the dungeon floor. The tree's corrupting influence stretched far beyond normal dungeon limits. No other monsters existed here, only carnivorous plants. It had a system to store nutrients, proving this thing possessed an ego. The more he stared at this monstrous plant, the more repulsed he became. Channeling sharp wind magic, he broke free, his anger completely boiling over. Stetch dared the beast to try again, swearing to burn it to ashes. Infuriated, the monster lashed out wildly, but Stetch cleanly avoided every strike. Using his fluid dancer skills, he easily kept his distance, dodging effortlessly. It was surprising that a mere weed could actually lose its temper like this. As Stetch struggles to slice the stubborn vines into thinner pieces, he admits something. He desperately wanted to unleash a secret move against that armored bear earlier, but too many eyes watched then. Now his fireball combines with an air blast to unleash a raging firestorm the tree tries to defend itself with. No use, the vines are hit, and Stetch is sweating from the intense heat. Memento urges him to unleash as many rapid attacks as possible while he can. Seizing his chance, he charges toward the tree, striking the vines with electricity. Vines strike from behind. Still, his confidence deeply impresses Memento. Memento wonders if he has a plan, but Stetch tells him to look closer. It is made of dense, rugged vines, but one specific spot stands out as highly critical. Approaching the monster's face, he delivers a heavy punch that penetrates deep inside its wooden throat, immediately channeling a dark curse aura to rot it. But that is not enough. His sentient artifact suggests another crazy method. Remembering Gerald, his deep, burning hatred fuels him. He activates his cursed devouring ability, absorbing the cursed elven items he grabbed earlier. Clenching his fist, he channels that power, transforming his fireball into a darkness inferno. His spell becomes a hell of high-temperature flames, incinerating the target completely. Outside, two elders and Alelena hurry to the dungeon entrance, desperate to find out the current state of the raid and if the human is dead or alive. Right now, there is no way to know. It has been quite a while since he entered, but there are no unusual signs. The elder declares it is her turn to suppress this dungeon. Captain Nazir panics. Elder Bellora actually wants to go inside. He urges her to wait, but look at that, just as things get tense, some elves suddenly appear. The captain quickly orders his men to hold fire and lower their weapons. Jester gasps, recognizing them as the missing elves, and immediately sends them to safety. Meanwhile, Elder Alina and Captain Nazir are shocked to see them. Unbelievably, Cain Dronwar is actually alive. Alina runs to him. Did that mysterious human really save them? Cain slowly opens his eyes, making the girls cry with pure happiness. He is alive. The old elf begs Captain Nazir to send reinforcements inside immediately, explaining that a strange human had braved the depths alone to rescue them, even giving them an escape scroll. But despite his power, leaving that place alive is practically impossible. He begs them to help. Suddenly, a violent gale of wind and thick dust blasts out of the entrance. Elder Bellinora screams that they must go help the human right away. Jester and Renata prepare, but a massive curveball is coming. Stetch suddenly teleports out with the scroll, and the entire dungeon collapses. He stands talking to his hand, unaware of the massive crowd staring right back. Everyone is completely shocked to see him standing alive. They realize the monstrous red tree is dead, meaning they are finally free. But while a legendary hero has just risen among the elven tribes, Gerald quickly prepares to leave before the royal soldiers arrive, asking Balstock to stay behind and handle a few matters. Catching his subordinate off guard, he hands him a mysterious letter, instructing him to investigate a dangerous new dungeon that has a spy in the Kingdom of Galia had uncovered this secret and sent word. Gerald wanted him to handle this personally, so Gerald ordered him to select the finest soldiers from his elite guard and secure that mysterious artifact immediately. But there was a catch. The dungeon sat right inside Galan territory, which could easily trigger a major international conflict. He had to tread lightly and avoid detection. He understood the mission perfectly. The prince decided to head toward the northern border first, planning to meet up after clearing the dungeon. Meanwhile, Stitch was making his way out of the forest with Elena, insisting he wasn't prejudiced. Still, walking into a human village with those incredibly pointy ears and facial markings seemed highly dangerous. Elena told him not to worry because those runes acted as a disguise, making her look like a normal human to strangers, though it was useless against anyone who already knew her. Stitch was genuinely amazed, wondering if this was some rare elven magic. Then again, he shouldn't be too shocked, considering elves can literally sense when a dungeon forms. He recalled Cain explaining that certain mana-sensitive elves, like his own family, could actually see the flow of energy when mana gathers into an ultra-dense point. It becomes too blinding to look at, and that is how a dungeon is born. The young explorer realized this meant a fresh dungeon had just appeared nearby, and she confirmed his suspicions. Memento was thrilled since no one would be around to interfere, but that advantage would not last forever. They had to clear it before others noticed. Elena was packed and ready to join him on this raid. He found her loyalty a bit old school, since nobody actually repays a village debt anymore. Still, Memento pointed out that her elven traits would be incredibly helpful, and Stitch agreed. After all, she used to be a skilled strider. She is highly agile, a deadly archer, and can literally locate hidden dungeons. Elena asked why they were heading this particular way, so Stitch explained that a small settlement lay just ahead. they would rest up there before traveling for another entire week. Soon enough, they caught sight of the town and he warned her to stay close behind him, even though she looked human. Memento wondered where this guy got his crazy confidence. Doesn't he have a massive active bounty on his head? Stitch brushed it off completely. They would never recognize him just because he changed his outfit. Honestly, Memento was starting to doubt whether his partner was actually a genius or just a complete idiot. Approaching the gates, the village guard immediately demanded his name while scanning a fresh wanted poster. He confidently claimed his name was Ryan Gosling. When the guard asked for Alina's name, she followed Stitch's lead and lied, claiming she was Selena Gomez. The guard eyed them with deep suspicion, but ultimately handed over an entry token and told them not to lose the permit and wished them a good day. Stitch was quite impressed by her quick thinking. She then asked why they lied since she did it blindly without knowing the reason. Memento again wondered if Stitch was brain-dead. He had never actually mentioned that he was a wanted man. Stitch suggested they head inside the first, where he promised to explain everything. Inside, the tavern was packed and incredibly loud with rowdy patrons. Compared to the peaceful forest, this chaotic place felt far worse. He offered her a local drink to try. Alina took a quick sip and immediately spat it out, coughing at the incredibly bitter, awful taste that felt like drinking mud. Memento could only Stetch agreed. Honestly, why do humans drink this? He sighed and decided to speak with her. He explained the whole situation over their meal while they finished eating. She was shocked that he actually got a major reward. He left the choice to her, allowing her to return to her forest home. She did not have to help him with his quest for vengeance, but Alina had other ideas. To her, his hunger for revenge felt totally reasonable, especially after his wood speech. Alina felt she would be a total hypocrite or an idiot to stand in his way. After all, he saved her entire kind from extinction. In the name of the Drain War, she would pay her debt. Stetch felt pretty strange thinking about Alina's parents, who had actively encouraged her to go on this journey. They supported her grand adventure without even knowing what it was all about. Alina noted that taking down the king would definitely not be an easy task. Even so, Stetch seemed like the kind of guy who could actually pull it off. She started asking about his strange ring, but he quietly gestured for her to stay silent. Nearby customers were whispering about royal soldiers suddenly taking over all the roads and countryside. Apparently, many were robbed. Alina quickly realized this was going to be huge trouble. Constant patrols would make traveling almost impossible, especially since they had zero clue about the forest path. A total death trap. She immediately demanded to know Stetch's actual plan. Soon, guards were rounding up travelers headed down the dangerous trade route. Because of recent robberies, the military had stepped in to fix the issue. Rich merchants who could easily afford private guards were being forced to group up. They had to travel alongside the poorer folks who could not afford any security. Stetch saw an opening here and decided to find someone to use. Approaching one of the merchants, he asked if they could tag along. The guy sighed, explaining he was broke and already following someone else. Instead, he pointed toward a famous and incredibly wealthy merchant named Farquaad over there. One look at this pretentious guy was all Stetch needed to know he was trouble. Still, he approached Farquaad and asked if they could join his guarded caravan. The wealthy merchant snapped, angrily repeating that he only traveled with his own crew. Stetch quietly noted that everyone around was starting to watch him make a scene. To protect his image, Farquaad quickly changed his tune, asking if they were adventurers. When they nodded, Farquaad reluctantly let them tag along. That was shockingly easy. As they set off, Stetch started chatting with the poor merchant who helped him. Stetch mentioned he was a dungeon explorer, which completely blew the man's mind. He admitted he once dreamed of exploring too, but a goblin shot his knee. That injury ruined his dreams when he was young. Meanwhile, Alina stayed on high alert. Since Stetch told her to keep an eye out, she scanned the shadows constantly. Later that night, while they finally rested, she quietly reported back to him. Nothing felt out of the ordinary yet, and she hoped it would stay peaceful. But suddenly, one of their companions collapsed onto the ground without a sound. They grew dazed as invisible mana particles quickly flooded the air. Even Stetch did not anticipate this sneak attack. Losing consciousness instantly, Alina bolted to escape. If she stayed, she would pass out too. Hiding in the bushes, she watched. Several mysterious figures surround the merchant. Were these the robbers they were warned about? The thieves grumbled about how many guards the wealthy target had hired. He must be incredibly important, meaning his carriage held massive loot. The thieves asked if they should take everything, but the boss refused. Their only target was Farquaad. He told Filch to leave the others alone, but suddenly realized one target was wide awake. Stetch was still actively moving, completely unaffected by their mana dispersion. They lunged at once to stop him. Stetch was furious at these cowards for using magic to jump a guy in a group. He immediately unleashed his hand-to-hand combat skills to knock them out cold. The remaining thieves absolutely panicked, terrified that a human could shrug off their magic. Actually, Stetch had unlocked Magic Resistance Level 1. It reduced all negative magic effects by 20%. Memento explained their growing connection was transforming Stetch into a vastly superior human being. Stetch hated how arrogant that sounded, but Memento told him to just shut up and accept it. The thieves screamed for their boss to help, but the leader stood there completely frozen. He had never seen anyone shrug off his sleep spell like it was nothing. Stunned, the boss demanded answers from Shale, who looked completely lost. Shale swore his magic was working perfectly. This kid was just some kind of freak. The furious boss spat out, who was this guy, and was he some kind of mercenary? Stetch was no mercenary, but he was not about to sit back and watch a robbery. Those few bold words were all the excuse the bandit leader needed. Now watch, the leader decides to end the game, vanishing into thin air. He reappeared right behind Stetch, planting a brutal kick directly into his face. The speed was unreal. Stetch could not even process how the guy had moved. Stetch tried to speak, but the thief only answered with heavy violence. A second precise boot smashed right into his nose, threatening to knock him out. The bandit leader mocked Shale, asking if he had completely lost his touch with magic. He laughed, calling Stetch a weakling who only survived the sleep spell by pure luck. The short mage snapped back, asking if the boss wanted to cast the spells himself next time. Then the bandit leader made a bizarre proposal. He wanted to capture Stetch. The other thieves protested, unaware that Alina was up in the branches watching everything. She was certain the leader had vanished for a moment, making her highly suspicious. There was no way this bandit was normal, but she had to follow them. As they hauled Stetch away, Memento was absolutely furious at his reckless partner. He scolded Stetch for passing out way too often lately during critical moments. Stetch always let his guard down whenever he fought other human opponents. But how was he supposed to fight someone who could literally teleport? Memento insisted they needed to fight together as a unified team in these battles. Stetch grumbled, wondering why Mr. Floating Skull had not stepped in to help. Their argument cut short when a steaming mug was placed right in front of him. Stetch glared back, deeply annoyed by the gesture. He demanded to know why a dangerous thief was suddenly acting so friendly. The leader smiled, introducing himself as Garrett, and made a direct proposal. He wanted Stetch to join him, claiming to be a true patriot of this kingdom. He styled himself as the leader of honorable bandits who serve the common people. Mocking the idea of patriotism in this trash kingdom, Stetch gave a fake name, Brian. He asked if Garrett took him for an absolute fool. Why would he ever join bandits? Garrett blinked, completely caught off guard by the sheer hostility of his response. They claimed to be an honorable group of thieves who only robbed the rich to give to the poor, but to Stetch, a crook is always a crook, Garrett's. Soldiers could not believe this man wanted to join them. Rob and Garrett reminded their crew of where they started, Bernard was once a beggar and was now a top member. Even shy Shale was just a gnome before becoming a powerful wizard of the squad. Garrett slammed the table, boasting that he made all this happen. He had a real talent for spotting diamonds in the rough. Suddenly, something unexpected whipped past his ear, leaving a tiny cut. In a flash, every single torch was blown out, sending the camp into a panic. They screamed they were under ambush. But what army could hide in these woods without making a single sound? To Stetch, it was clearly Selena Gomez. While the guards were distracted, Stetch saw his chance to slip away and ran. Selena whispered for Brian Gosling to follow and quickly joined him. Stetch wanted to know how many guards she killed, but Selena promised she only used force when necessary. They were all just knocked out cold. Suddenly, a figure blocked their path out of nowhere. Looking way too exhausted to actually intercept them easily, it was Garrett. And he had no intention of letting them leave. He asked if they knew what came next. Garrett was furious, telling them to stop resisting already. Because his patience had run completely thin, he charged straight at them too. Strike, but they hit first, only to hit empty air. Selena Gomez and Brian Gosling stood completely baffled by what just happened. Thanks to Memento warning Stetch about an incoming gut blow, he managed to deflect the strike and leap back. Stetch then asked if Brian could see any sort of trick. Memento explained that the artifact on Garrett's shoulder let him slip between the spiritual and physical realms at will, turning him into a literal ghost. Ordinary humans could never see him, but to a higher being, hiding was impossible. Just then, Shale caught up to the battle. Garrett kept swinging wildly at Stetch, but missed every time, getting smacked right back by the fists of vengeance. That definitely hurt, judging by his expression. Brian screamed for Selena Gomez to act. Her daggers flew, almost pinning the phantom down. Shale was stunned by how Stetch anticipated his leader's swift movements. No human should see this. Stetch nearly smashed some of Rob and Hood's teeth right out. Even with his ghostly tricks, Garrett was losing. Shale realized the thief's moves were actually getting sharper mid-battle. He decided to intervene, casting a spell at Stetch, but Selena cut him off with a perfectly aimed stone. Besides singing, she had a deadly throw. She warned him to stay back, but the other bandits rushed in to grab her. Instantly, she unleashed a powerful gale. They had no clue she could use magic, and the heavy wind sent them flying. Garrett realized they were in deep trouble. Suddenly, Merchant Farquaad showed up with his guards, ordering them to strike down everyone. Stetch Gosling felt relieved by the backup, but froze in utter disbelief when the order was given to target everybody. As soldiers charged, Stetch raised his hands, trying to surrender, but in the pitch-black night, those absolute fools could not tell friend from foe. Left with no other option, he drew. He uses his sword to defeat the last mercenaries. Soon, Shale wakes up and asks what just happened. His worried boss immediately asks if he is okay, but he has no clue why their secret camp got exposed by the very targets they robbed that same morning. Even worse, the enemy brought massive reinforcements along, and one of them is a towering giant immune to regular physical weapons. The only thing they hadn't tested yet is magic, so they ask Shale if he can deal with him. Shale attempts to cast his special drag magic, which normally slows down targets by 30%. However, his spell fails completely because of the giant's magic-resistant cloak. His boss realizes their enemies are dead set on wiping them out today, unable to believe they obtained such expensive gear. Drawing his dagger, he orders Shale to go help the others, while Garrett suddenly vanishes, appearing instantly on the giant Robocop's shoulders, striking the head but only hitting the helmet. Before he can strike again, the giant sweeps his arms from an impossible angle to bend his massive limbs like that. The guy must be made of rubber. Person slammed face first into the dirt. Garrett faces a punch that would be fatal. Fortunately, things are about to heat up as Stetch finally steps into the fray. He unleashes intense fire magic to stop him, making Garrett's hair stand on end. Even with a protective magic cape, the Titan cannot nullify this massive blaze. Memento casually scoffs to his partner that the giant's defenses are a total joke. A cheap item cannot block his incredible spells. Stetch simply has to admit his partner is overly excited, after giving the giant a momentary break. The angry Titan swings at him with all his might, desperate for revenge. But these sluggish swings are absolutely zero threat to a seasoned veteran with hacks. He easily recalls fighting Volbear, who is vastly stronger and faster. This giant is an open book, incredibly predictable. He slaps the giant's backside, and then Alina leaps from the trees, locking him in a chokehold, despite her seductive appearance. Alina hits like a heavy missile, slamming the brute straight into the dirt with massive force, easily defeating him. Garrett stands up with a smile, teasing Brian for playing hard to get, openly wanting to join their incredible guild of honorable thieves. Stetch has to restrain himself from smashing the annoying guy's head in, too. He merely explains his hatred for the Venezia royals, offering to help them defeat them. Unleashing his most terrifying magic, he makes the enemy soldiers experience a devastating lightning strike, leaving everyone on the battlefield completely frozen in shock by this terrifying power, prompting the remaining mercenaries to quickly give up. Soon, the entire enemy force is bound, including the merchant Farquaad. He bitterly curses Stetch for always hanging around with lowly thieves, declaring, "Highborn nobles must never associate with commoners," but Stetch coldly reminds him his own reckless attack is what landed him in this mess. Before Garrett cutting in, Garrett demands to know exactly how they tracked their camp. The captive refuses to talk, which immediately makes Garrett highly suspicious that there might be a hidden tracking medallion buried deep within their stolen treasures. Shale puts the merchant to sleep, muttering that he should handle the merchandise. That is what happens when you grab treasure without any real knowledge. Satisfied with the interrogation, Garrett tosses a water bottle to his new ally. He asks Stetch if there is some deep, unresolved history between them. The royal family, Stetch believed he was correct, but what was Garrett really after? Was this some kind of elaborate scam? Garrett explained that the crown had been corrupt for a long time, exploiting the fear of neighboring nations to drain their wealth. They pocketed fortunes from loyal citizens and allies alike. That was his entire motivation. Garrett could not just stand by and watch. Turns out, he is actually a key lobbyist. For Venetia, he regularly routes military funding straight to the northern borders. Just to bypass the kingdom taxes, Garrett insisted he only targets the corrupt. Stetch quietly admitted they shared similar goals, but Garrett's slow approach would take too long to save Venetia. With the truth out, Brian Gosling wondered if he was free to go, or if they would force him to join. Since Brian had zero interest in snitching, they let him go without any fuss. Garrett barked orders to his crew, preparing to pack up and leave. They would leave in an hour. It was goodbye, but Garrett hoped they would meet again. Our hero smiled, quietly hoping to avoid getting mixed up with thieves again. But if destiny called, they might cross paths. Heading out, they continued their journey. They walked for quite some time, before stumbling right into a hidden dungeon entrance. This confirmed that Alina had a real knack for sniffing out these places. It looked incredibly clean and untouched. They stepped inside and Stetch used his fire magic to light the dark corridors. Suddenly, Alina spotted something hiding. Stetch asked if she had ever faced goblins. She had only seen them in the woods. He warned her that dungeon goblins were a completely different breed of danger. They were incredibly vicious, and he wanted to show her exactly how they hunted. Spotting the sneaky traps laid out by the monsters, he easily disarmed them. He explained that these creatures get absolutely furious when their prey avoids their traps. That makes them attack blindly. Stetch also demonstrated just how easily they catch fire. Using his fire magic, he roasted them all and quickly absorbed their leftover mana. Alina felt a tiny bit of pity for the creatures. Honestly, you have to wonder if the real monster was this guy who fights like a complete savage. Meanwhile, another party of adventurers was actively exploring the very same dungeon. A young lady named Millie used a glowing pendant to navigate the dark paths. She led a strong elite squad, the Baltok Special Forces. Suddenly, Millie halted the group. Something felt off. This trap had already been disarmed. Maybe a smart monster did it, but it was likely another human explorer. Raymond pointed out they had not run into a single monster yet. Even the simple-minded Emmerich realized they were not alone. What they discovered just around the corner completely confirmed their suspicions. A pile of freshly roasted goblins. Millie knew no normal dungeon monster did this. This was definitely another adventurer. Meanwhile, back with the duo responsible for the roast. Advancing was incredibly smooth. They finally made it to the boss room. Opening the heavy doors, they faced a massive beast staring back at them. The monster had 10 eyes. 9 were visible, but 1 remained completely hidden. Stetch, already tired of facing giants, barely dodged a sudden, heavy strike. He retaliated instantly, unleashing a massive surge of electricity through its body. The deafening roars of the beast echoed violently throughout the entire dungeon. Even the Baltok squad heard the commotion from far away. As they got closer to the noise, they saw a colossal, terrifying sight. A massive creature was facing something even scarier. What would Millie do now? Inside the boss arena, Alina used her quick movements to shoot silent arrows at the monster's eyes. Meanwhile, Stetch kept charging the boss's battery, but it just refused to hit full. Seeing her chance, Millie ordered Raymond to get ready. The archer asked if she was serious, but her quiet stare said everything, while Stetch struggled with the monster. Raymond prepped an arrow packed with heavy magic. He aimed for a fatal spot, intending to take out their biggest obstacle here. The rival explorer. It was an impossible shot to dodge, but then, to their absolute shock, the explorer dodged without even looking their way. Raymond's heart completely sank when Stetch turned his eyes right toward him. Within seconds, Raymond's teammate barely saved him from getting roasted like those dead goblins they found earlier. They survived the blast, but they were not out of the woods yet. Stetch missed them once, but they would not get lucky again. He asked if they were going to play dumb and pretend they did not. No, he was human. After all, he felt the deadly intent behind that arrow. Raymond stood frozen, trying to process the situation. This guy just threw massive fireball. He was definitely the one who wiped out the goblins solo. He was highly dangerous. Stetch was getting annoyed now. Nobody was answering him. No excuses, no begging for mercy, but there was another reason for their silence. Crackling electricity echoed down the path. Emmerich rushed in just in time to shield his teammate, but even as the group's heavy tank, he could barely withstand the magic he blocked. Memento noted that his shield redirected magical energy. Even so, Emmerich felt his limbs go numb. He realized this was absolutely not normal. While the guys clashed, the dungeon's boss monster was still thrashing around like an angry porcupine, howling in intense pain. Alina jumped back, asking who these people were. Stetch had no idea. He only knew they were hostile. Alina suggested taking them out first, offering to back him up. Stetch thanked her, then launched a powerful kick to send the intruders flying. Deep down, he really did not want to kill fellow humans, but Alina did not share that hesitation. She aimed to kill. Millie leaped in, deflecting every single arrow. The speed caught the duo off guard. Using the distraction, the red-haired fighter lashed her whip sword at Stetch. She managed to wrap him up, and Emmerich charged in like a train. Raymond seized the opening, aiming another deadly arrow straight at his head. Furious at the coordinated ambush, Stetch broke free, shattered Millie's sword, and knocked the arrow away. Raymond missed his shot again, barely dodging Alina's counterattack. This was bad. They were clearly losing ground, and that elven archer was lethal. Stetch demanded to know who they were and why. They targeted him, but the rival squad stayed silent. Memento pointed out. They would never talk to targets. They were trained professionals. Stetch wondered if a certain someone had hired them to erase him. They had to be after the dungeon's treasure, staring down her enemy. Millie ordered Raymond and Emmerich to suppress the mage while she took care of the annoying archer, but things were about to get much more complicated. The massive boss positions itself right behind Stetch and Alina, trapping them. Enemies surround them from both sides. Suddenly, Millie lunges at Alina with absolute fury. Alina barely blocks the strike, using her wooden bow as the boss prepares to strike. The beast zeroes in on the elf, gathering massive flames deep inside its throat. A sea of fire erupts toward them, while Stetch holds off the other two hunters. He worries for his partner, but Emmerich presses forward with heavy weapon attacks. The constant pressure forces Stetch back. Still, the clever mage has a plan. He fires a rapid wind bullet spell, but it slams harmlessly against the heavy shield. Emmerich's guard is unbreakable. Behind him, Raymond unleashes precise spellfire at Stetch. Even in a 2-on-1 fight, the pair find themselves struggling against Stetch. This is no ordinary fighter. He is a battle-hardened dungeon veteran. Alina easily parries every attack, leaving Millie on the defensive. Then the giant monster creeps up directly behind Millie. Alina uses this perfect distraction to slip behind her rival. Her heavy kick is blocked, but Alina warns she is no simple ranged fighter. She can easily handle close combat too. The girls immediately trade savage blows. Their martial skills are perfectly matched, trading punch for punch in rapid succession. It is like fighting a mirror image. Neither can get the upper hand. Fists turn to steel as they use every piece of gear to win. Millie leaps onto the massive monster to get a better view of the chaos. Alina grits her teeth, but Millie's real problem is Stetch dominating her team. Stetch prepares to unleash a devastating spell. Millie screams for Emmerich to interrupt him. But Stetch is one step ahead, channeling two complex spells at once. A massive air explosion and crosswind tear through the entire chamber, blinding everyone. He tells Alina to strike. Raymond barely dodges the blast, suffering only a scratch. Though he escapes mostly unscathed, Millie takes the full force of the spell. Left with no other choice, Emmerich begins siphoning the rogue magic into Millie. Ignoring their desperate struggle, Stetch keeps his focus entirely on the main threat. He vaults onto the colossal, multi-eyed boss, preparing his ultimate strike. He drives his exploding blade deep. The beast's head blows into pieces. Within moments, Stetch absorbs the creature's energy. Now it is 2 against 3. He and Alina stand tall against 3 severely wounded enemies. Stetch orders Alina to secure the ancient artifact while he finishes the job. Alina hesitates, asking if he really needs to execute them in cold blood. After all, they will be buried alive anyway once the dungeon collapses. With a chilling glare, Stetch asks if she knows how he survived his past betrayal. He lived because his enemy got sloppy, and he will not repeat that mistake. As he steps forward to execute them, Emmerich detonates a massive smoke bomb. Thick fog fills the chamber as the desperate trio makes their final, reckless gamble. Emmerich charges directly toward the artifact, while Raymond aims one last, desperate shot. Through the red-tinted haze, a lethal arrow flies straight toward its mark. Unfortunately for him, Alina has zero mercy for those who threaten her partner. Blinded by the heavy smoke, Stetch watches as Alina makes her move. She ruthlessly takes down one attacker and instantly closes in on the next. Activating her high-speed movement skill, Alina intercepts Emmerich and unleashes a deadly surprise. Clinging to his arm, Stetch bursts from the smoke, dead set on reaching. That prize first, it might be a unique treasure, and they absolutely have. To claim it, Emmerich has zero chance of beating them in speed. So he targets the young mage instead, but Stetch is totally done with. His constant spell blocking, this time the enemy has no shield left. To protect himself, Stetch dares him to block this before firing. The fireball hits. Emmer feels his skin peel as his vision fades. Watching them grab the artifact, his mission is over and his life is done. As they swipe the prize, the entire dungeon begins to collapse. Tons of rock bury them, but our duo escapes. Talk about a close call. Still, Stetch is furious. Why would anyone throw away their lives for this? Alina suddenly remembers Raymond shouting at them to ignore the casualties and grab it. What makes this strange metal bracelet so insanely valuable to them? Quietly, Stetch asks his floating skull friend Memento to evaluate the prize. The skull just scoffs, calling him an idiot for expecting any decent loot from a newly spawned dungeon. He demands Stetch feed the junk to him immediately. Ignoring the greed, Stetch figures the floating skull is just talking total nonsense out of pure jealousy. He decides to put the bracelet on right then and there. He has never kept a single artifact since Memento always gobbles them first. This time he is keeping it. Instantly, a strange sensation washes over him. Instructions flood his brain, revealing its name is Barak, and Memento goes absolutely ballistic. The skull demands to know how his contractor dares look at other gear. To make matters worse, a bound artifact can never be eaten by Memento. Stetch completely tunes out the floating skull's screaming, not caring in the slightest. Barak successfully registers in his Explorer Stetchelier. Selena Drainier watches and asks if he is actually planning to keep this one. Stetch grabs a simple stone to test the bracelet's power, enchanting the rock on the spot. Its power skyrockets, and he explains to Alina that it basically creates a magical weapon he suspects that as his strength grows, he will be able to hold. Even more gear, this only pisses Memento off more, screaming about betrayal. Sometime later, they meet up with a guide waiting on the path. This traveler is supposed to help them travel safely, which makes Alina realize that her partner has some seriously high-level connections in this world. They hit the road. The guide studies his map, pointing out their route. Heading straight north will lead them right to the massive Rasha Mountains. That is where the famous mining metropolis of Sentigma sits, their ultimate destination. But something is off. The city the man mentioned is the other way. Yet their guide insists they must take a slight detour first to bypass trouble. Security at the main gates of Sentigma is notoriously tight, requiring a bypass. To get inside, he has been placing enchanted stones along with bribe money. As a quiet toll, the merchant warns them that they are incredibly lucky to find someone brave enough to guide travelers along these sketchy hidden paths. He tells them to squeeze inside the back of the wagon, but wait as Alina climbs up and flashes her legs. Stetch instantly blushes like crazy. For the next few hours, he desperately tries to keep his composure. And of course, they breeze right through security without the merchant even having to show off his wagon cargo. Once they arrive, the merchant shows them around the city and suggests checking out local taverns first to gather some intel on the place. They end up at a bar where the owner has heard quite a bit about Stetch. Through Dalton, his name is Balthazar, and he gladly would have welcomed the duo. But they showed up at the worst possible time. Naturally, Stetch wants to know what's going on, while Alina cringes at the terrible drinks humans love to gulp down. Balthazar explains that monster incidents around the mines have been spiking lately. Because of this, a massive army of kingdom soldiers gathered to handle the threat. Balthazar warns Stetch that if he has any common sense at all, he will keep his head down, especially since there is a major bounty on him. Stetch is pretty frustrated with the news and makes it clear that he does not plan on sticking around this town for long. He only cares about finding black market smiths and alchemists. So when are they coming? Balthazar is totally stunned by the question and tells the kid he clearly does not understand the situation. Thanks to this heavy military campaign, hundreds of soldiers are filling up the streets, meaning every single local blacksmith is fully occupied with army work. Hearing this, a furious Stetch realizes he cannot get what he came for in town. Balthazar explains that even though army work does not pay well right now, it keeps the surrounding area secure, which is why they accepted all military orders. Stetch snaps and yells that he has plenty of cash. Is there seriously no? Greedy craftsman Balthazar could introduce him to right this second, since it is so important. Balthazar promises to look around. Cut to a few days later. And Stetch is practically weeping at the bar table. He has got tons of gold and shiny gems, but nobody will take them. Is his quest for revenge not more important than keeping some local townspeople safe? Just then, Elena walks over to thank him for the new human clothes he bought her. You would think our guy's depression would vanish instantly, but before that can happen, Balthazar slides over with some amazing news. He actually found two people willing to help out. But first, Stetch needs to buy them a drink. Right before him stands his only hope. A blacksmith and an alchemist. They are Casper, the alchemist, and Letty, the muscular blacksmith. They swap greetings, and Casper immediately makes it clear that the situation is pretty tough. Everyone is swamped with military orders, but as a special favor to Balthazar, they will put Stetch first. It is all about having the right connections. Casper wants to hear exactly what the explorer needs, so they can figure out if it is even possible. Stetch presents his custom sword, the one he has been using, crafted by a buddy from another town. The two have never seen anything like it. Even before picking up the weapon, they note that fixing it is not going to be easy. Letty examines the blade and is genuinely shocked by its high quality. She explains that the unique gas recipe needed to power it is not something you can easily find in this kingdom. Because of that, she suggests replacing the gas in the cylinders with gunpowder. Casper confirms this would offer way more firepower and be simpler to reload than gas, though it will be pretty pricey. Stetch just smiles and pulls out his heavy gold coins, because he also has one more request to make. Casper looked over the leather defensive gear and made a quick comment. He mentioned leather might be pretty hard to find right now, then asked Letty for help. The blacksmith agreed to help, but there was one catch. They had to bring their own hide, since the army claimed all local materials. After that, Stetch put all of his brain power into figuring things out. Balthazar laughed at him, since nearby monsters were made of stone, no harvestable hides. That meant zero leather, but get this, Stetch already had a wild idea. He suddenly asked if that beast Balthazar brought up yesterday was stone, too. Balthazar got serious, admitting he did not have any direct information on that. But looking at the survivor wounds, it was definitely some sort of beast. He explained that the army was called in because no local could kill it. Stetch's plan was clear to everyone, but he claimed he was just curious. He promised he would not do anything stupid. It was just a harmless question. But Balthazar knew how guys got around danger. The small facial scar proved it. He pointed out a nearby soldier who worked as a black market informant. If Stetch wanted to track down the beast, that man had the answers. The soldier snapped out of his daze when Stetch slammed something onto his table. It was a nice gift. Then Stetch asked about that monster attack in the mines. The soldier got angry, snapping that he did not talk to nosy strangers. Stetch promised he was not there to spread gossip around the town. He just wanted to know what happened during the attack, which only fueled his rage. Fine, he yelled. It was true. He was the guy who ran instead of fighting. He asked if the kid had a problem with that, but Balthazar stepped in. He handled the soldier the best way he knew how, keeping things smooth. He said running was the smart move, since he was a valuable source of intel. Calmed down, the informant revealed the mine monster was actually a manticore. Stetch found this pretty weird, since those beasts did not belong here. They usually lived in the deserts of Kaldad, not the Rock-Shaw Mountains. The informant explained they broke a deep mine wall, releasing the creature. He swore the beast had massive bat wings and a scorpion tail. Hearing that description made Stetch's eyes light up immediately. This was the perfect high-tier leather he needed for his brand new gear. The soldier could barely lift his massive reward. The gold was incredibly heavy. Stetch thanked him, casually mentioning he was off to hunt the beast. The man told him to forget it, since elite adventurers failed to beat it. Only the actual army stood a chance, so he tried to return the gold. He refused to take cash that would send a kid to his grave. Stetch grinned, telling him he was way more than just a pretty face. To prove his strength against a manticore, he decided to show off a little. He fired a quick, precise magic blast right at a nearby candle. The soldier quickly grabbed the gold back, asking if the kid was a mage. Stetch laughed and said no, then asked if the man had a problem with that. The soldier shook his head, but wanted to ask the kid for a favor. Soon after, Stetch and Alina reached the mines, using the informant's secret route. They had to slip through the filthy sewers, and now they smelled absolutely terrible. A ruined bathroom entrance. Just looking at it, Stetch pictured the horror inside. What that beast did inside, inspecting the wreckage, he used sharp instincts to hunt it. A thick stench of rotting flesh immediately hit him, making him gag. His nose was way too sensitive, but he had to push through. Dry mud tracks led in only one direction, suggesting the immediate area was clear. He was scout-checking the perimeter when Alina suddenly called out, spotting a severed arm. She wondered if this gruesome limb belonged to one of the missing soldiers. Their informant did ask them to bring back keepsakes from the fallen comrades. Alina quietly collected personal items from the bodies before they moved deeper in. With the beast lurking close, Stetch asked Memento if he knew its weakness. That was his guide's specialty after all, so he needed some quick answers. Memento warned him manticores have thick, impenetrable hide. No physical weapons can pierce them, and magic is completely useless. Stetch grumbled, how is it fair to resist both types of damage? Every beast has a flaw, the inner wings are incredibly thin. Pushing forward, they stumbled into a clearing covered in fresh blood and bone. It looked like a massive slaughterhouse. Did the manticore do all of this? Memento nodded. There was simply nothing else around capable of such violence. Stetch could not disagree, but the sheer scale of the carnage felt wrong. Suddenly, a massive roar echoed through the cavern, sending shivers down their spines. Memento warned that the beast had already detected him and was waiting ahead. His nerves were screaming, but honestly, would you back down here? Alina scoffed, muttering that 8 hours of terror training with her grandmother was worse. Stetch and Memento exchanged a look. Just who exactly was this girl? Our explorer took a deep breath and slapped his face to stay sharp. He started preparing like Batman with a plan, ready to bait the beast. Alina would wait in position, ready to provide backup at the perfect moment. He trusted her completely. It was finally time to greet their terrifying host. He muttered this while applying a fresh magic enchantment to his favorite dagger. Stepping inside, he searched for the beast, but found its glowing egg instead. A huge surprise, considering a manticore must live 50 years to lay one. Finding this was incredibly rare, and Stetch immediately saw a massive payday right there. If he could just secure that rare egg, his financial struggles would vanish forever. But he caught himself. He was getting way too distracted by easy money. His real goal was revenge, but that tiny distraction, it almost cost him everything. The manticore lunged, nearly swallowing him whole, but his quick reflexes saved him. Unwilling to let him go, the beast whipped its deadly scorpion tail forward. Stetch barely parried the strike, but acidic venom splattered all over his blade. One drop on his skin would melt him. This fight was getting dangerous. Memento yelled that the clever monster was using its own egg as bait. Knowing he could not damage it head-on, Stetch chose his best option. He turned and bolted, leaving the furious manticore to roar wildly in his wake. The beast seemed insulted by his sudden retreat, as if issuing a challenge. Hearing another deafening cry, Stetch decided to accept this deadly invitation. He channeled both fire and lightning magic together, ready for a clash. Wrapping around the manticore's entire body, suddenly, Memento warns him to watch out. The monster's deadly tail whips around again, launching a barrage of poisonous stingers. Stetch keeps running, throwing out constant magic attacks to draw its attention. But even with its insane magical defense, the beast is feeling the pain. It fires back with venomous stingers, but Stetch blocks them all effortlessly. Suddenly, a barrage of arrows rains down, barely scratching its thick hide. But the distraction worked. The beast charges straight into the wire trap. Trapped in the tight tunnel, it's completely stuck. Fireballs rain down. Alongside Stetch, Alina lets loose with every single arrow she has left. He screams out for more power, desperately yelling that the beast is about to break. But no, enraged, the Manticore roars, dispersing their entire magical assault. The magic vanishes. Now they have to face this nightmare head-on. Stetch charges, Alina covers him from behind. The monster shields its face. With its eyes covered, Stetch climbs even higher to strike the wings directly. A massive hit, but the beast immediately thrashes back in pure fury. A brutal headbutt sends him flying straight into the cold cave wall. Spitting blood, he lies still. Alina screams his name in sheer panic. Stetch casts recovery magic. Memento quickly warns him it won't be enough. It only restores base health. It won't close deep, open wounds. Broken bones and ruptured organs will remain, but Stetch doesn't care right now. He knew the risks, it was worth it. His dagger is already in place. Now all he has to do is trigger it, channeling raw lightning inside the beast. Massive electric currents surge through the weapon, dealing a devastating blow. The beast shrieks in agony. The sound echoes through the dark caverns. A grin spreads across his face as he realizes his plan is actually working. The metal blade acts as a lightning rod, frying it from within. Yet despite taking fatal internal damage, this monster refuses to die. The beast clings to life with insane resilience. Honestly, how is it still standing? It lets out a deafening roar, blowing away their magic once again. In the chaos, its venomous tail whips forward to crush the arrogant human. Working together, Stetch and Memento trigger a powerful wind blast. The sudden explosion deflects the stinger and the toxic acid spray. It lunges with razor-sharp claws. Alina watches, waiting for an opening. She tries to blind the monster, but the beast spots its new target first. Target locked, it decides to eliminate the annoying archer right now. Focused on her shot, Alina doesn't see the deadly tail swinging. But Stetch's sharp reflexes save her just in time. He sweeps her up, saving the future mother of his kids from death. It's too dangerous. Stetch yells at her to fall back and hide. The electric shocks are doing heavy damage, but it's still standing. Memento agrees, but warns that they need a direct, critical hit. Stetch bitterly regrets not having his favorite weapon with him. His explosive sword would have finished this, blowing the monster to pieces. Unfortunately, that overpowered gear is back at the shop for repairs. He channels every ounce of magic into one ultimate electric spell. The monster's power was fully loaded, ticking like an overcharged bomb about to blow. Stetch threw absolutely everything at it, but the beast refused to drop. The Manticore stared him down before collapsing heavily onto the dirt. Had he been trapped under that massive falling body, it would have completely crushed him. Stetch scrambled forward, aiming for the neck. He was so entirely focused on the neck that he missed the massive tail sweeping from behind. A heavy arrow struck the tail, saving him. Alina watched closely, refusing to let the monster touch her companion. Stetch snatched up a discarded shovel, preparing to use it as a deadly makeshift weapon. He struck right where his dagger was wedged, violently tearing off the Manticore's heavy wing. The creature's deafening shriek of agony rang in his ears, but he pressed on. That loud ringing could not slow his relentless attack. He rammed the shovel deep into the bloody hole left behind. The brutal display left Memento and Elena completely speechless. Stetch fired a massive fireball inside, blowing the beast completely apart. Gore rained down, covering the veteran hunter Stetch. Just look at the sheer size of the crater left behind from that blast. The explosion caught Stetch too, so Alina rushed over with medicine. Even the Relic Memento had to admit the hunter was quite impressive. Alina could not see or hear the floating relic. Still, she shared his thoughts and praised her companion. Stetch had won, but something felt completely off. Both Alina and Memento asked him what was wrong. Stetch pointed out that the eaten bodies were missing from its stomach. Memento agreed. They had passed so many bodies outside. This thing should be full. Then Stetch remembered the egg. The dead beast was a male, meaning a mate was nearby. Suddenly, a shadow whipped from the dark, targeting his face. In a flash, Alina kicked Stetch out of harm's way. Sliding across the dirt, Stetch screamed for Alina to look behind her. The female manticore's tail had wrapped tightly around her neck, ready to snap it. Desperate, Stetch fired an air blast to free her. The strike freed the elf. He should have known there were two. That egg meant there was a mated pair, and this female was significantly larger. She was far faster and stronger than the dead male. Her attack was too swift for him to dodge in time. The heavy impact threw him backward, directly onto her sharp tail, skewering him like meat. Its barb pierced right through where his heart should be. Venom dissolved his flesh. Alina froze in absolute horror. But Stetch, barely conscious, screamed for her to run away. This was the actual beast from the informant's report. He blasted her with fire to free his impaled body. Despite a hole in his chest, he forced himself to stand. Ignoring his warning, Alina stepped in to shield him while he recovered. But the beast blindsided her with terrifying, brutal speed. Shattering her bow and throwing her far from the clearing, the brutal impact was loud. She lay completely still, unconscious or dead, Stetch could not tell. His own ribs were cracked. He downed another potion, eyes locked on Alina. Memento muttered that she still breathed, but they were running out of time. The female manticore was not letting them escape. She lunged forward, roaring. Furious over her dead mate, she charged. Memento took over the spellcasting. This freed Stetch to focus entirely on physical combat, sword ready. It was a race against death. He had to kill her before his body gave out. Wind magic propelled him upward. He barely evaded her razor-sharp claws. Dust blinded the beast. Stetch saw his opening, one clean shot. Dropping like a stone, he sliced straight through her leathery wing. He landed hard on her snout, driving his blade deep into her eye. Blinded, she thrashed. Her jaws clamped down hard onto Stetch's side. Teeth tore his flesh, but Stetch just grinned, blood coating his mouth. She ripped away a massive piece of his side and flung him across the dirt. He rolled through the dirt, gasping, yet his flesh was already weaving back together. His wound sealed completely. Stetch stood and let out a blood-curdling scream. The beast flinched. This human felt more like a monster than she did. Alina blinked her eyes open, her vision blurry, head throbbing in agony. Through the dust, she saw a terrifying sight. The giant beast was backing away. She could only see Stetch's back, but his entire posture screamed madness. Memento warned him that their energy was depleted. One final spell remained. Stetch slid his backup dagger into Alina's trembling hands, whispering low. He told her he was at his limit. Everything depended on her next move. The manticore watched them tense. Then Stetch made his move. Green lightning crackled across her back, paralyzing her massive limbs. Stetch poured his remaining mana into the shock, leaving the beast paralyzed and convulsing. He had seconds. Stetch lunged, raising his heavy weapon high over his head. Driving the metal spike into her remaining eye, he screamed for Alina to move. Alina leaped, her movement swift as wind, landing directly behind the beast. She swung the heavy blade, cleanly severing the manticore's venomous tail. Stetch grabbed the severed stinger. He would use her own weapon against her. This was the apex predator's deadliest tool. Now it belonged to him. He plunged the venomous spike deep into her chest, piercing the heart. It was over, but looking at Stetch's crazed smile, Alina felt a chill. Later, they limped back into Balthazar's tavern. The patrons went silent. 2 lone explorers had slain the beast that wiped out entire platoons. Stetch did not just kill the beast, he took her unhatched egg as well. Balthazar offered a hefty bag of coins for the valuable intel. Stetch refused, saying the information he wanted was more than enough payment. The city's greatest threat had been solved by a self-serving mercenary. He only did it to jump the queue at the blacksmith shop. The soldier who gave the tip was passed out at his usual table. Stetch tossed a handful of dirt-caked dog tags onto his table. He told him quietly that was all that remained of his squad. Maybe he could have brought more. Still, it eased the man's heavy heart. His cowardice that day haunted his sleep, but now he had something for the families. A small offering for his next visit. Despite the tragedy, Stetch felt glad. He had actually helped someone on his travels. Later that night, an alchemist arrived. He had heard rumors of a manticore egg in the tavern. Casper stared. The egg amazed him, while Letty focused entirely on the beast's valuable hide. Balthazar delivered a grim warning: damage these goods and suffer his absolute wrath. Stetch just laughed at the intense customer service, finally starting to relax. Letty wondered how exactly Stetch managed to kill those monsters. Their hides were incredibly torn up. Still, she knew that was a minor detail. Surviving a manticore fight at all was nothing short of an absolute miracle. Stetch agreed. If he had paused to protect the hide, he would be dead. Casper then pushed a bag across the table, leftover funds from the upgrade. He explained it was the remaining coin from reinforcing the warrior's gear. Stetch blinked in surprise at the heavy pouch. The blacksmith gave an update. The sword would be ready tomorrow, but the custom armor required a bit more work. It would take about 3 days minimum. Stetch looked completely taken aback by that. He figured curing and tanning high-grade monster hides took weeks, not days. Letty scoffed, calling anyone who took longer a total amateur. Then Elena walked in. She had a serious problem. She wanted to know if her bow was salvageable. Letty shook her head. Stetch assumed it was simply beyond any hope of repair. A brand new one was needed, but this particular weapon used rare elven techniques. Elena doubted they could replicate that level of artistry here. Stetch lowered his head and apologized. He felt responsible for ruining her gear. Elena looked down. It was a cherished family heirloom from her grandfather. Memento chimed in, agreeing with her, which only made Stetch feel far worse. The heavy guilt of breaking something so precious weighed on him. Stetch suggested visiting a master smith tomorrow to see if they had options. She gave a quiet thank you, offered a soft good night, and headed to her room. Memento asked if he really believed they could locate genuine elven work. Stetch glared, wanting nothing more than to tell Memento to shut up. He needed peace to think. Meanwhile, far away, Prince Gerald issued urgent orders. His men had to rebuild the defensive wall before the next monster wave hit. Absolutely nothing was going right, and trust me, things were about to get worse. Castle Brendan had finally established contact, but the news was deeply troubling. Tension filled the room as Balstock's magical projection flickered to life. He casually asked the prince how things were going. Gerald felt a wave of relief. He needed this ally, but then Balstock asked if anything had gone missing. Gerald stiffened. Balstock brought up the secret task force sent out weeks ago. Their mission had been to retrieve a powerful artifact from the new dungeon. Gerald braced himself, assuming the squad had simply failed their quest. The reality was far worse. Balstock's monitoring team discovered something shocking. The entire dungeon lay completely in ruins. Gerald felt a cold sweat. This meant an unknown threat had already claimed the powerful prize. He immediately suspected betrayal from within his own elite circle, but it was worse. These elite guards were recruited from lost orphans, bound by dark blood magic. A blood oath, never a single traitor until now. Prince Gerald knew Balstock trusted his guards blindly, so he did not doubt their loyalty. But this went beyond some stolen artifact. His royal pride and dignity were on the line. If Alfred found out, things would get ugly, so he ordered Balstock to act fast. He needed them found immediately. Meanwhile, our main guy Stetch was just trying to peacefully eat his breakfast. Asking about local weapon shops only made Balthazar sigh, bringing up a completely different issue. He mentioned that Stetch's girlfriend had already gotten up early and headed out. Balthazar then warned him to be careful, since way too many suspicious men were lurking around. Stetch angrily threw his napkin back, yelling that she definitely was not his girlfriend. He quickly ran off to find Alina, eventually arriving at the incredibly busy local market. He searched around, suddenly realizing he had never explained the basic value of money. If she got scammed, it would be bad, but Memento told him to stop stressing over it. The artifact knew the elf was actually way more careful and sharper than him anyway. Suddenly, he overheard some sketchy voices and spotted Alina standing right next to a total stranger. And right on cue, a sudden loud crash echoes through the air. Honestly, 3 random thugs stood absolutely zero chance against a girl like her. One angry guy charged forward with a dagger, but before he could even swing, Stetch moved. A heavy punch sent the attacker crashing down hard, absolutely terrifying his buddies. Alina did not hold back either, leaving another thug with a badly fractured head. The impact even cracked the nearby brick walls. Stetch rushed over to ask if she was all right. Alina asked if he doubted her because she struggled against that dungeon woman earlier. Stetch was not worried about her, but rather the danger of her killing someone. If she overexerted her monstrous strength, they would end up dead. Time to leave this place. He wanted to find a safer spot. On the way, Alina asked his business. Stetch admitted he was searching for her and asked why she slipped out so early. She explained that elves believe ancient tools carry ancestral spirits. That meant her broken bow actually contained her own grandfather's spirit. Talk about high stakes. She was determined to fix it immediately, but her words stabbed Stetch right in the chest. Ouch, that's real emotional damage. The heavy guilt leaves him groaning in misery. Memento laughed, realizing the elf might actually be way cleverer than she let on. She was subtly weaponizing that guilt while whispering quiet, painful complaints about her damaged bow. Fixing the bow in secret was tough, since quiet spots were rare. Alina walked past several local shops, but lacked the courage to step inside. She feared the local humans might immediately recognize her distinct elven features and cause real trouble. Stetch understood her fear and promised to find her a replacement bow soon. Memento mocked him, asking where on earth he planned to find such a weapon. How could some cheap, common shop piece ever replace a sacred, deeply sentimental elven family relic? Stetch told the artifact to shut up, though the talking weapon ignored him. He waved Alina over to a promising little shop, and they stepped inside. Since this was a busy mining hub, rare treasures had to be hidden somewhere around here. He called out for a shopkeeper. Meanwhile, Alina drifted toward the bow rack. Stetch smiled as she picked up a seemingly elegant bow, hoping it would work. But she sighed, complaining that the wood was totally ruined and the craftsmanship was terrible. Hearing her harsh critique, both Stetch and Memento realized she was incredibly picky. Finding her a bow seemed hopeless. Suddenly, the shopkeeper stepped out, apologizing for the noise and asking what they wanted. Memento whispered a sudden warning, "Stop him before he speaks." The strange companion warned that amid all this useless trash, real treasure hid. Stetch needed answers. He wanted clarification on that bold claim. His companion saw the world through a very different lens. He asked what it saw. Memento pointed toward a strange, heavy artifact. That seemed perfect for Alina, though its nature was a mystery. Later, she stared quietly at her new weapon. Stetch was glad she liked it. Still, the concept of a magical tool adapting to mana surprised him. Alina thanked him softly and named the weapon Li Cordacchio on the spot. He stared, completely astonished she had already given it a name. A sudden wave of unease hit him. Keeping cursed items around felt dangerous. His limbs grew heavy. He quickly grabbed some low-profile gear to avoid drawing eyes, but Memento loved soaking in the dark aura. The dark energy made the artifact a terrifying but extremely useful partner. Though Stetch hated it, Alina asked when they were leaving. Stetch replied that Letty had all her gear ready for their departure. They quickly collected the equipment and left the city, hunting wild goblins, kicking the small pests around like soccer balls with brutal ease. He suddenly went on high alert, spotting a massive, terrifying goblin chief wandering near Jylon village. If a chief was roaming out here, the local leader was incredibly lazy. Neglecting the borders was just begging for trouble, he told Elena, to clear out the smaller pests while he took down the massive leader. She nodded confidently, immediately slaughtering the nearby horde. The chief charged, thrusting its heavy spear forward. At first, a direct hit seemed completely certain. But Stetch did not even flinch. He easily grabbed the spearhead, smiling like a villain as he suggested they speed this up. A few loud minutes followed, leaving dead beasts scattered across the ground. While Stetch drained the chief's mana, Elena asked what their next move was. Should they go teach the corrupt village lord a lesson? Stetch shook his head. Their main goal was cutting royal funds while quietly helping the locals. He shared an incredibly interesting rumor he had heard from Dalton. Apparently, a greedy noble named Borden was hoarding massive amounts of cash. Even better, rumor had it that the chief of Jylon kept hundreds of ancient artifacts locked in a private vault. If that was true, this corrupt noble was going to have to share his stash with them. Entering the village, they immediately spotted a royal guard seizing a pig. A poor farmer begged desperately, crying that his family would starve with nothing left to eat. The soldier scolded him harshly, commanding the peasant to shut his mouth. Everything here belongs to the Lord, so stop complaining and submit. Elena watched, absolutely furious and ready to draw her weapon right there. But Stetch grabbed her arm, sharing her anger but telling her to wait. They needed to carefully assess the situation first, without drawing any unwanted eyes. The broken farmer watched helplessly as his last possession was dragged away. He could not even feed his family, so the two offered him a shiny gold coin in exchange for shelter if he did not mind hosting them. The kind family prepared a delicious hot meal, even though they're new guests. Protested, the host then explained that life started getting much worse years ago. It began with higher prices for basic public facilities like the community well. But recently, the soaring taxes have put an incredibly heavy burden on them. They now have to surrender over half of their total harvest to the leader. Surprisingly, the situation is so bad that even the Lord lacks enough funds and supplies to leave. Hearing this grim tale left Stetch completely speechless. The poor villagers cannot save anything, remaining forever indebted to their local ruler. Everyone is trapped in debt. Elena grew incredibly angry hearing about this mistreatment, especially since they are even seizing the farmers' lands for unpaid taxes. The host added that even the town guards are not spared from greed. Their pay was cut, making our protagonist realize how foolish the leader is. By doing such idiotic things, talk about terrible leadership, he ruined everything. After hearing all this, Stetch decided to ask a question. He asked how the man knew so much. The host replied the tavern is where secrets flow. It was the best place for gossip. Stetch immediately remembered Dalton, who always knew all the rumor mills, proving that taverns are the perfect spot. That was where they needed to go. Later, the tavern soldiers looked surprised. They had never seen Stetch before, so they asked what he did for work. This stranger had just completely crushed a massive man in arm wrestling. Stetch laughed and replied that he travels around working as a mercenary. The guard looked surprised to hear that, sensing a highly unusual strength hiding behind his casual smile. One intense match was enough to make them friends, so he offered a drink. It was on the house. As they talked, the guard was shocked to hear this young mercenary mention that there were dangerous goblins lurking near the village. The soldiers were supposed to keep them safe, but Stetch insisted he met a massive goblin leader. The soldier eventually believed him, though he felt relieved, since Stetch had defeated the beasts already. But our clever protagonist quickly claimed that he barely escaped with his life, stroking the giant guard's massive ego. He said only an elite warrior like him could defeat that ferocious boss. First you best them in strength, then you praise their pride, pure genius. Instantly, the guard respected Stetch and happily started spilling every local secret. After several strong mugs and plenty of laughs, he learned about the village. The corrupt chief had hoards of gold and purchased every magical artifact he could. Hearing this, Stetch smoothly mentioned that he actually had an incredible relic with him and was looking to sell. Immediately, the guard's greedy eyes lit up. Honestly, Stetch was just disappointed by how easy they were to read. The soldier laughed and boasted that their chief would buy absolutely any artifact, even if it had been dropped into a dirty, smelly toilet beforehand. If the young mercenary brought it to the castle, he would receive a fortune. He explained that these official deals were run by Grandmaster Chelsea himself. Stetch left the tavern feeling quite tipsy. Alina complained he took way too long, demanding to know if he successfully secured their vital target intelligence. The night went on. They drank too much and talked a lot, but Stetch got the information. While walking, Alina commented that she did not understand why humans liked that bitter liquid. After some time, the elf mentioned they were being followed, so Stetch grabbed a stone. He used an artifact to enhance it, throwing the rock directly toward their pursuers. This showed he knew they were there, ordering them to leave if they valued their teeth. But instead of running away, they gathered to confront the mercenary. They shouted at him to hand over the artifact and get out of town. Before Stetch could say another word, Alina lunged and broke a soldier's teeth. Stomping him with her knee, she leaped 3 meters high, leaving even Stetch stunned. He told her not to attack people while they were still talking. He honestly didn't know how he had managed to defeat her in the past. Memento clarified that Stetch only won because he was buffed by him. Before Stetch could even help, she had already broken the teeth of 5 soldiers. Within minutes, all of them were tied up. Then Stetch spotted someone. It was the soldier's leader, the same guy he had befriended at the bar. Stetch made sure to kick him right in the face before asking questions. How did they organize this ambush so fast? Was it a setup from the start? They clearly had a habit of robbing people here, but who was organizing this? These idiots could not have pulled off a scheme like this on their own. He demanded the mastermind's name right now, giving them only 3 seconds. If he didn't speak, broken fingers would be the least of his worries. Terrified, the man quickly confessed that the mastermind was Grandmaster Chelsea. This left Stetch skeptical, but the soldier insisted it was true. He confirmed that Lord Chelsea himself sent them on this robbery mission. Apparently, Duke Borden had been spending way too much money on artifacts. They urgently needed to steal valuables to replenish the town's funds. Stetch was actually embarrassed to learn these guys weren't even stealing for themselves. They were just mindless lackeys following orders for a total idiot. He then asked where this person kept all the stolen artifacts. Before anyone could speak, another captive blurted out that they didn't know. He shouted that Lord Chelsea was extremely cautious with his information. Not even a standard guard knew where the relics were stored. Stetch agreed that made sense, but another soldier claimed he knew something. He noticed some highly suspicious activity near the chief guard's barracks. The guards were regularly carrying massive pieces of meat down there. Stetch sighed, asking why he should care about a pile of meat. The soldier snapped back, calling him stupid for not seeing the obvious clue. Think about it, a massive meat delivery down there means only one thing. A wild monster is likely guarding the dungeon filled with relics. Meanwhile, we are shown the chief of Jelen Borden in his mansion. The town duke was currently receiving a visit from Grandmaster Chelsea. He came to ask if they had received word from Prince Lapters yet. The duke told him to remain calm and be patient. They just needed to focus on collecting more rare artifacts for him. His job was to hoard rare relics to please the greedy duke. Borden was completely obsessed with the latest artifacts they had grabbed. Particularly the last one, It was worth more than both others combined. They had to deliver these priceless relics to the prince directly. One good deal, then they would be set forever. Chelsea had one clear job: make sure nothing went wrong. Back at the village, Stetch was quietly staying at a local house. The beaten guards hidden inside, he could not risk any leaks. He had to rob the chief blind without getting caught. These hostages could not leave and blow his cover, so he warned them. No noise, stay quiet, and you walk out of here alive. He began mixing a strange potion while telling Elena to get ready. It was time to raid the well and steal the chief's treasure. If the chief was smart, the well would be packed with deadly traps. Though he had no map, going through the well was their only shot. Elena agreed. Still, she wondered how they would bypass the guards. What about the guards and that monster in the dark? Stetch smirked, noting the creature was definitely flesh and blood. It eats meat, that makes it a pure carnivore. All they had to do was serve it a very special, drugged meal. Staring at his brew, he realized the real problem was escaping. But here is the massive catch: how does he actually make his escape? To pull it off, he needed Elena to cause a massive scene outside. She had to draw the guards away at the exact moment he emerged. He told her she could even drop a meteor on the town. Perfect, she had no fear after hearing his plan. Slip in, drug the beast, slip out with the treasure. Still, it was incredibly dangerous. Why can't I come along, she asked. Was she dead weight, just an obstacle in his way? Smiling, Stetch shook his head and assured her that was wrong. Her job outside was his only lifeline. Can you handle it, he asked. Grinning, she admired her weapon and gave him a confident nod. He could count on her. That night, they put the plan into action. As Stetch scouted the target, a sudden rustling caught his attention. He looked closer and saw Elena dragging a massive wild pig she hunted. It was a massive beast. Drawing his sharp dagger, he began preparing the bait. He laced the meat with his sleeping formula to bait the monster. Elena surveyed the heavily guarded castle walls with a tense look. There were way too many soldiers. How would he get past them? Especially while carrying a giant slab of raw pork on his back. Scaling the high stone walls, Stetch deeply regretted the heavy load. He scaled the wall. Now he had to avoid the patrols. Sticking to the deep shadows, he finally spotted the old stone well. Moving completely silently, he slid the heavy cover back and immediately gagged. A foul, rotting smell. It was definitely a massive beast. Memento whispered to his partner that they needed to move much faster. Toss the food before the guards spotted him, but while trying to throw a massive slab of meat, he caught a very familiar name: Chelsea, a man. Walked up, demanding to know if the sentries were actually keeping watch. They claimed everything was quiet, but the boss still ordered them to double the patrols. Stetch shrank into the darkness, completely unseen. By the passing guards, heart pounding, he muttered that survival came down to quick reflexes. Sharpened by years of close calls, Memento pointed out that the leader was notoriously strict. Boosting the security now meant one thing: something major was about to go down in this place very soon. Stetch still did not get why they hoarded so many powerful relics just to lock them away in some dark vault. Clutching the edge of the deep well, he waited until the beast took the bait. Once sure it was eating, Stetch finally made his leap into the abyss. Landing quietly, he joked that his nose was broken since the stench had faded. But the dark humor vanished when a massive sound echoed right beside him. Heavy, rhythmic breathing. A colossal shadow rested right there in the dark. It was a sleeping Burnapa. Memento questioned how anyone could transport this giant beast all the way from the deadly swamps. Stetch shrugged. Money makes anything possible in this world. Sneaking past the sleeping colossus, he stayed incredibly calm. He had pumped enough sedatives into that meat to knock out an army. It should stay down, yet Memento still found it highly suspicious. How did mere humans keep such an untamable terror completely suppressed? Moving deeper, Stetch ran straight into a heavy, reinforced iron door. To an amateur, this was a dead end. To a master rogue, no lock on earth could stand in his way for long. Now watch, he stepped into a vault, absolutely overflowing with glittering gold. Jewels and gold everywhere, but Memento urged him to focus on the pedestal. Ahead, there it was, the exact prize he had been hunting for. Inspecting the relics, he realized the dagger and the helmet were pretty average. They could not even compete with the Baroque relic resting on his wrist. Memento practically drooled, begging Stetch to let him feed on the magical items. He tossed them over, absorbing both relics. Memento boosted Stetch's stats significantly. His maximum mana skyrocketed from 850 to 3,250. His lightning evolved, unlocking an incredible new skill called Tesla, right then. A strange system interface flashed before his eyes. The raw power was undeniable. But several high-tier skills remained locked behind massive mana requirements. This only fueled his drive to reach the next tier of strength. While those two relics were gone, one mysterious item still remained on the altar. A strange vial. He tried to unseal it, but the lid would not budge. Shrugging, he pocketed the bottle to examine later. He quickly stuffed his bag with as much heavy gold as possible, but heading back, a sudden growl stopped him. The Burnapa was wide awake. The sedative wore off way too fast. He drew his dagger, driving it deep into the monster's neck, but before he could trigger his explosion skill, a brutal impact sent him flying across the cavern floor. The strike was devastating, dragging him through the dirt as blood spilled from his lips. He just wants to slip away quietly, but his exit is completely blocked. He prepares to cast a wind spell, only for his magic to fail. The sudden nullification almost costs him his life against the giant monster. He has absolutely no idea what is happening to his magic. Memento warns him that magic-nullifying Dispellium is embedded in these walls. It is a rare material, usually forged into handcuffs to restrain wizards. This shocking news makes Stetch absolutely furious. So this is where all the citizens' hard-earned tax money actually goes. Meanwhile outside, Alina sighs as she waits. He has been in their way too long. Deciding it is finally time, she activates her powerful artifact. Summoning a massive bow, she recalls this is Ada's legendary specialty. Though she lacks experience, she successfully fires anyway. Her incredibly powerful arrows slam directly into the fortress walls. The guards panic, frantically wondering if they are under bazooka fire. Sitting 500 meters away, they have no chance of spotting her. Safely hidden in the forest, she calmly readies her next massive volley. Soon, the entire castle begins to shake from her relentless onslaught. The enemies scream that a whole army is attacking with bazookas. Hearing the chaos, Chelsea breaks out in a cold sweat of worry. Disaster always strikes at the worst moment, so he orders a search. But the petrified soldiers are completely unable to react or defend themselves. A lookout on the wall spots the shots coming from deep within the forest. But the very next instant, a flying arrow strikes him down. Chelsea screams at his forces to storm the woods and find them. Borden hears the commotion and rushes to Chelsea for answers. The commander warns him that going outside right now is pure suicide. An unseen enemy is destroying the castle, so they order the gates closed. They raise the drawbridge, but Alina calmly watches them from the trees. Her next arrow flies true, directly shattering the heavy bridge chains. The massive bridge crashes down, leaving even Alina stunned by the power. Controlling this raw force is incredibly tough. Meanwhile, Stetch is still fighting. Trapped deep underground, he has to slay this monster without magic. How can he possibly win a battle against such a gargantuan beast? Memento points out that the field nullifies the monster's mana too. This makes it the absolute perfect opportunity for him to strike. Stetch is furious, wondering how on earth this could be considered perfect. Then he remembers all the effort he spent getting new physical gear. Realizing his companion is not an idiot, he immediately finds an opening. Slipping behind the giant creature, he drives his blade into its neck. He then detonates the explosive gunpowder built directly into his sword. Seeing the effect, Memento smugly boasts that this was his plan all along. That eccentric dwarf really crafted an insanely powerful weapon for him. Stetch mutters it might blow his arm off, just as the Burnipa charges. He dodges the swift attack by leaping directly onto the ceiling. Loading another explosive capsule, he prepares his dagger as it turns around. He got a clear shot to attack, but before he could close the distance, the beast whipped around, roaring in his face with a mouth full of jagged teeth. Its heavy breath reeked as a deafening howl shook the air to find an opening. He met its charge head-on and slid right underneath. Stetch didn't even need an explosive blast, relying purely on his blade. The underbelly wasn't tough at all, slicing through the Burnipa like warm butter, clean in half. But he instantly regretted not burning the beast to ashes with a fireball instead. Because he was now completely drenched in rancid, slimy monster guts, even Noom agreed that his partner smelled absolutely disgusting. Honestly, Stetch would trade all this treasure for a hot bath right now. He attempted to activate his curse-eating ability, but nothing happened. Because of the nearby mana draining stones, this meant the beast's magical energy would go totally to waste. Noom wondered how Stetch could possibly haul all this gold back up. Climbing the well with that weight was impossible, which got our hero thinking. Why even try to hide it? He had already caused massive chaos down here. And up above, plus, Elena had surely kicked up a storm by now. He decided to walk right out the front door. He just needed to find a path straight to the castle. Locating a hidden switch, he pulled it, and an elevator creaked open, leading directly into the main complex, which connected to the chief's grand manor. Stetch quickly ducked into the shadows as a squad of guards rushed past, yelling that the fortress was under siege and the drawbridge had been completely destroyed. Listening closely from his hiding spot, Stetch knew only Elena could wreck things this spectacularly. Relying on sharp animal instincts, he mapped out the source of every nearby sound. He pinpointed the stables and overheard the guards shouting that the intruder's weapons were highly unusual exploding arrows and that the drawbridge could not be raised again. Now completely certain it was indeed Elena, he locked in his next move. Leaping straight out of a high window, he dashed toward the stables. It did not take long for the guards to spot a guy without armor galloping past, lugging a massive sack that looked heavier than the horse itself. Somehow, Stetch broke through their lines and rode hard toward the village. Mid-gallop, Elena caught up to him. Asking if the heist went well, he replied that they were only halfway done. Their next stop was the town square, but she warned him pursuit was closing in. Did he actually plan to fight the entire army? Not at all. He just kept riding. Within minutes, the pair burst into the crowded town square. He told Elena to stay out of sight and act the second he gave the signal. Stetch summoned a massive, blazing fireball that illuminated the entire sky, grabbing everyone's attention. With all eyes on him, he yelled at the top of his lungs, "Listen up. People, this is your shot to escape this corrupt, oppressive regime right now. If you want a fresh start, take this wealth and run for your lives." At his signal, Elena launched the massive sack, weighing easily over 2,000 kilograms high into the sky. Our outlaw used a massive wind spell to scatter gold and jewels across the entire plaza. The kind man who took him in, along with the townsfolk, stared in absolute disbelief at this utter madness. Just then, Chelsea and his armored guard arrived, demanding to know what on earth he was doing, throwing away the exact treasure he had just stolen. "You will not escape alive," but Stetch simply smiled and replied, "I am returning it." Furious, Chelsea commands the soldiers to execute the thief on the spot. Stretch steps in to stop them, knowing the guards are only following orders. He immediately releases his powerful ice magic, freezing the helpless guards completely solid in an instant. This gives the frantic townsfolk plenty of time to escape with the gold. Stetch delivers a deadly serious warning before vanishing into the night. If your corrupt leader continues down this path, his head is next, and with that, just like that, the entire town of Ben is completely deserted by morning. Our hero is already far away, but he still smells absolutely terrible. Alina can barely stand to be anywhere near him because of that absolutely horrific, lingering stench. She tells him to use perfume, pointing to a strange bottle he kept. He actually gave away all the gold, but kept this mysterious vial. The bottle is actually a magical artifact, which she then opens effortlessly. He is totally baffled. He could not open it with his raw strength. Stetch takes the bottle back and dabs the liquid to test it. Once he realizes the incredible effects of the liquid, he tells Alina she should keep it. But the proud elf girl flatly refuses the legendary relic. He explains that the strange elixir massively boosts the physical capabilities of whoever carries it. She still looks completely miserable, even after he explains how useful it is. The relic speaks in his mind, calling him a complete idiot. Ever since they first met, the elf girl has shown nothing but utter disgust for cursed relics. To her, they only represent tragedy and deep sorrow. Realizing this, Stetch quickly apologizes and promises to drop it. She is left completely silent by his apology, but inside, her anxious mind is racing. Alina remembers her pride, but she is weak compared to him. Her magic is inferior, and humans routinely defeat her in close combat. Even her cherished bow was completely shattered because she lacked the necessary strength to defend herself. All because she simply lacked the strength to protect it. The painful thought haunts her: has she just been a burden to him this whole time? Swallowing her pride and fear, she suddenly snatches the vial from his hands. He immediately tries to object, but she sharply tells him to shut up. "If my village banishes me for this," she whispers quietly, "you will have to take responsibility." Even a totally dense guy would understand the deeper meaning of those words. "Drop a comment if you felt that." She then downs the liquid. Stetch immediately asks if she is all right. She gasps, saying the liquid is sharpening her senses and purging her body. The artifact is called Emrita. Stetch smiles, glad to hear it. He tells her that is excellent, predicting that the physical transformation should begin at any moment. And right on cue, a strange, burning energy begins spreading up her arm. Seeing her agony, he remembers his own painful pact with Memento Mortem. For him, the painful process felt exactly like dying, but she must try not to panic. Unable to bear the pain, Alina collapses onto the dirt and blacks out. Sometime later, she wakes up, but her senses are now overwhelmingly sharp. Her brain is overloaded, and even her own heartbeat sounds absolutely deafening in her ears. She can feel every individual grain of dirt on her hands. Stetch watches anxiously. Alina is awake, prompting Stetch to check if she can control her new artifact. He is deeply worried, but she says her senses are now intensely sharp. In fact, she begs Stetch to stop smelling so bad right now. While they bicker, the scene shifts right back to the royal palace. Prince Lapters has just received a letter, but the contents leave him completely unsatisfied. Annoyed by the brief report, he decides not to read it aloud. Instead, the prince tosses the letter to his general, Mark McDowell, to read himself. It turns out a brown-nosing noble promised some priceless artifacts, but someone robbed him blind. Lapters does not actually care about the lost treasures themselves at all. He is furious that someone dared to steal something meant for the royal family. Mark asks if they should hunt the thieves down. The prince snaps that it is obvious any disrespect to him is treason. The arrogant prince, who is Stetch's ultimate target, demands immediate blood. He orders General Mark to personally track down the mysterious thief. This thief is dragging the royal name through the mud. One of the strongest men in the kingdom accepts the task to bring back a head. With that bloody mission accepted, we head right back to our traveling duo. Oddly enough, even their horse is complaining about Stetch's terrible attitude. The stallion feels superior, because he gets to carry a beautiful girl on his back. Meanwhile, Alina is completely blindfolded, yet she can feel every movement nearby. The young elf chose to cover her eyes because the new visual feedback is overwhelming. Her brain simply cannot process everything she is seeing right now. Since she can easily move without her sight, they keep pushing forward. Stetch pulls out their map to plot the course to their next destination. He intentionally picked the roughest trail to lose any potential pursuers. But the terrain ahead is brutal, and they cannot continue on horseback. Just as they prepare to dismount, Alina suddenly tells him to freeze. Her ears catch a sound Stetch could never hope to hear. She pulls off the cloth to check for flapping wings. Stetch immediately activates his own animal instincts to boost his hearing. To his shock, he hears absolutely nothing. How is she doing this? She hears a massive beast roaring along with the desperate screams of humans. She asks if they will help, and Stetch agrees to investigate. These must be innocent travelers who truly deserve to be saved from danger. But crossing the unstable bridge through this thick fog is incredibly risky. Alina calmly tells him to step back because the beast has spotted them. She draws her bow, prompting Stetch to admire her incredibly cool posture. It gets even wilder when the artifact's dark curse floods her left eye. As her vision locks onto the distant target, she prepares to fire. The arrow shoots forward, flying straight through the thick fog for miles. Just one shot completely drains her, but she confirms it was a direct hit. While Stetch tries to peer through the fog, Alina collapses to her knees. Using the artifact even once is incredibly exhausting, and she needs time to adapt. Leaving their stallion behind, the duo begins to cross the narrow bridge. They slowly head toward the scene of the battle to investigate the commotion. The humans are badly beaten. They barely survived this clash, looking far from victorious. Without some outside help, they would have been complete history, while they are still. While they tend to their wounded, Stetch and Alina arrive at the chaotic scene. Stetch is shocked to find that the group in trouble is led by that annoying guy. It doesn't take long before he spots Stetch, calling out that the world is incredibly small. They met again. Stetch curses under his breath, wondering what he is doing here and what. The thief is planning, but the guy offers no real answers, just claiming that fate says. They should team up, stop resisting, he tells Stetch. Even if he refuses, he should. At least attend their meeting to hear what they are doing. Stetch can easily help out. He also greets Alina, not recognizing her beauty at first because of the bandages and heavy coat. He wonders aloud why she is blindfolded, making Stetch annoyed. Stetch is irritated because his artifact, Memento, immediately recognizes that Alina outclasses him. The girl is clearly already mastering her mysterious new artifact. Though they really do not want to, they follow them to the thieves' camp. They are stuck camping here because the path ahead requires a bridge to cross. While they build it, Stetch asks what this has to do with fighting monsters. Garrett simply responds that they look tasty and they need food too. Survive, just thinking about eating those vile monsters makes Alina feel completely nauseous. Are all humans this disgusting? She wonders. Garrett knows Brian Gosling does not want. Yet he still insists that they join the main meeting to hear. Maybe a strong argument will change his mind and make him help. He explains that the bridge they need to cross is completely destroyed right now. So only when his men build a new bridge can they pass through. The only other route through these mountains is a highly dangerous cursed cave. Hearing that they must either build a bridge or navigate a cursed tunnel, Stetch gets highly curious about what actually destroyed the original bridge. Even with all of Garrett's arguments, Stetch refuses, so he asks for one favor. A bit later, Stetch is already unleashing raw electricity to clear out the camp. These humangos are incredibly powerful beasts, yet they are getting fried. Stetch's boosted lightning magic tears them apart in seconds. They are shredded so thoroughly that absolutely nothing is left behind to eat. Garrett, who had seen his power before, is left utterly amazed because This attack is far more brutal. What insane training has this guy been doing? This lightning far outclasses standard magic, but it has a cost. Stetch knows it burns through his mana quickly, meaning he cannot use it constantly. Alina points out that he looks exhausted and needs rest, but in truth he condenses his lightning into a tight, concentrated sphere. Asking Alina to guide his aim, the young elf, possessing sharp senses, far beyond Stetch's, points out that the pack is 400 meters right. Then, he fires directly into the flying swarm of beasts heading their way. A direct hit, but one beast somehow survives. It shrieks out in agony, painfully piercing Alina's highly sensitive hearing. Worse yet, a few deadly harpies are mixed in with the fleeing swarm. Prompted by this, Garrett's group decides to step in and help. However, Stetch yells for them to get back unless they want to get hurt, when the protagonist, preparing another massive lightning shot, Garrett yells for his crew to get back. Warned to back off or get fried, they watch Stetch unleash his full charge. He triggers his arc surge magic. A colossal wave of electricity splits the sky. It completely obliterates every flying beast in sight. The sheer destruction is absolutely mind-blowing. Nobody present had ever seen anything like it. They didn't even know this was possible. Stunned by the display, Garrett tells his men this is why they need him. He had to get Stetch on their side. Now, Garrett orders everyone to move. They need to harvest the monster carcasses and tend to the wounded. Meanwhile, Stetch is exhausted. That massive spell took a lot out of him. Garrett jokingly wonders why Stetch worked so hard. Especially since Stetch acts like he can't stand them. He also notices that Alina is completely wiped out. The massive blast dazed her and left her exhausted. It's time for a much-needed break. They can just kick back and relax while the others work, and just like that, 2 days fly by. While they recover, Garrett's crew successfully rebuilds the main bridge. Garrett hands out food as a reward. Thanks to these 2 overpowered adventurers, they're finally safe. The monsters stay away now. The beasts ruling this territory are completely gone. This area will remain safe for ages. Garrett goes on to explain why. They can stay protected here and even start charging a toll for the new bridge. But their celebrating is cut short when a frantic dwarf runs up with terrible news. He warns them that the enemy pursuers have just been spotted nearby. Caught off guard, Garrett immediately rushes over to verify the situation for himself. Though they aren't exactly allies, Alina wonders if they should step in to help. Too proud to admit he actually cares, Stetch decides to scope things out alone. He tells Alina to stay behind and monitor the camp. Soon, they are scouting from a distance. From their high vantage point, they spot a massive caravan stopping near the mountains. This group has been relentlessly hunting them down, leading to countless brutal skirmishes. But this time, the enemy forces look significantly larger and much better prepared. They brought serious backup. Spotting a specific flag, he instantly recognizes the enemy faction. The pursuers hired a deadly mercenary group called the Drakes. They are incredibly dangerous. They can't just provoke these guys and run. Now, let's see how Stetch reacts. While the others shake in fear, Stetch has absolutely no clue who they are. Garrett explains that they're legendary across the land, especially their deadly commander. His name is Garrod, and he goes by the title of Dragon Slayer. This shocks Alina. A mere human actually managed to take down a dragon. Well, not really. It is mostly fake propaganda he made up to build his hype. But that doesn't mean he's weak. In fact, he earned that terrifying title. He wields a fearsome artifact bearing the shape of a massive dragon head. Known as Spiratus, it fires devastating explosive rounds resembling a true dragon's breath. Despite the warning, Alina remains completely unimpressed by the weapon. Garrett momentarily forgets he's speaking to literal monsters, but quickly defends his point. He argues that it has infinite ammo since it eats stones to fire blasts. Listening in, Memento tells Stetch that dealing with this artifact will be a breeze. Clearly, Garrett failed to intimidate the duo. Up until now, they've only fled. But running is no longer the plan. It's time to take them down once and for all. Stetch asks if they expect him to fight. Garrett immediately says yes. After all, Stetch is easily the most powerful fighter they have. Stetch never agreed to join this group, questioning why Garrett couldn't understand that. Just slip in and kill everyone. They have the artifact that makes people invisible. Completely annoyed, the man claims it only conceals you, and if it could hide other people, they would not even be asking for Stetch's help. In his head, Memento tells him that the man is speaking the truth, entering another astral dimension demands a massive toll. Even hiding one extra person is impossible. Now Stetch finally understands exactly why Garrett was so exhausted during their previous fight. Alina asks what their next move is if Stetch helps. Stetch doubts her, questioning if she even has what it takes to defeat them. Suddenly they hear arrows flying. The enemies are strong and there are too many obstacles ahead. Getting spotted now means completely losing their tactical advantage. Stetch asks if the little dwarf can cast sleep magic on the targets. Garrett scoffs. That guy is not an elite mercenary for nothing. Sleep magic will not work. His squad wears heavy armor with magical defense wards. Tired of hearing what will not work, Stetch announces he already has a plan. Garrett is completely confused by this strategy because he mentions cages and setting them loose. Cut to Garrett's camp where royal soldiers and mercenaries are wildly celebrating. To these men, surviving each day is a major victory. They drink themselves to sleep, leaving guards on watch. Oddly enough, even Garrett's magical artifact needs a proper meal too. It literally munches on rocks for fun. Apparently, this weird object has an appetite. The camp is quiet and peaceful, then snap, something nearly pierces Garrett's skull. A lethal arrow from Alina almost finishes him right then. Instantly, the camp panics. They scream to locate the shooter, but then the temperature drops rapidly. Suddenly, freezing ice magic sweeps across the ground, pinning them down. Garrett cannot believe anyone would dare ambush his elite unit. Alina aimed straight for his head, yet the leader somehow blocked the shot. That level of defense proves this dragon slayer is the real deal. Stetch loses his patience. The only way forward is a direct, brutal clash. Ranged attacks are useless now. Garrett has to admit one thing. Stetch has got some serious guts. He cannot even fathom what is coming. Seriously, those were his actual words. I am just passing them along. Garrett is stunned to find his entire crew is being ambushed by only 2 fighters. Spotting them, he shatters the ice holding him back. He was simply waiting, letting them think they had the upper hand. What really ticks Garrett off is Stetch calling them mere bandits. Garrett claims he is actually a noble warrior fighting for the poor. But Stetch openly agrees they are totally bandits, no doubt about it. No point in lying. Garrett remains wildly confident he will crush these 2. Stetch lunges forward, charging his blade with crackling, high-voltage electricity. The strike does absolutely nothing, and a counter-punch almost crushes his face. He lacks the raw speed of the previous thieves, allowing Garrett to strike easily from behind, yet Garrett's incredible armor covers his sluggish movements. Stetch's strike fails completely, and the devastating counter blows are nearly lethal. Fortunately, he slips into that shadow dimension just in time to escape. Suddenly, Garrett realized these opponents were no ordinary bandits and grew alarmed.